The invoice was open on my kitchen table when Vanessa told me I wasn't invited to her wedding. Not postponed, not moved to another room, not asked to give them space during the ceremony and come to the reception later. I had already invented all 3 explanations by the time she said, "We think it would be better if you weren't there." The balance at the bottom of the page was $6,500. I pressed 2 fingers against the paper as if it might slide away. Who is we? There was a pause, and in that pause I heard a cabinet close on Vanessa's end of the call. Then my son said, "I'm here, Mom." Aaron's voice was low and careful, the voice he used when returning something without a receipt. I stared at the water stain above my kitchen window. It had spread another inch during the night's rain. "So I'm not welcome at your wedding," I said, "but you still expect me to pay the final installment." Vanessa exhaled. "We need your final payment, not your presence." I waited for Aaron to object. I waited so long I could hear the faint electric hum of my refrigerator and the neighbor dragging his trash cans up the driveway. Finally, Aaron said, "Mom, please, don't make this harder than it already is." That was the moment I understood there are things a mother can survive only by becoming someone her child does not recognize. 11 months earlier, Vanessa had stood in that same kitchen with an apron tied over a cream-colored sweater and laughed because Aaron had managed to burn garlic bread. "It wasn't burned," he said, scraping the black edges into the sink. "It was aggressively toasted. It was smoking. Flavor smoke." Vanessa looked at me. "Did he always defend himself this badly?" "No," I said. "When he was younger, he used tears." Aaron pointed the bread knife at me. Slander. He was 38 years old, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, and still made the exact face he had made at 12, whenever he knew he was losing an argument. Vanessa laughed with her whole face then, head tipped back, one hand resting on the counter. She wasn't performing. That was what I noticed first about her. She could be very polished when she wanted to be, but her real laugh was loud and slightly crooked. I liked it immediately. Frank had been gone 6 years by then. Sunday dinner had become one of those routines we maintained without discussing why. Aaron came most weeks. My daughter, Elise, came when her schedule allowed and never apologized when it didn't. I cooked too much food, packed leftovers into containers nobody returned, and complained about the missing containers as though I wasn't secretly pleased to see them disappear. Vanessa had been coming for 3 months. She always brought something, even after I told her not to. Wine, flowers, fancy salt, a lemon cake from a bakery across town. That Sunday, she brought nothing because Aaron had told her I meant it when I said not to, and she spent the first 10 minutes looking uncomfortable. "I feel rude," she whispered while we chopped parsley. "You're helping." "That doesn't count as a hostess gift. It does in this house." She glanced toward the doorway to make sure Aaron wasn't listening. "He said you'd say that. He's a terrible gossip. He told me you'd like me." I stopped chopping. Vanessa kept her eyes on the parsley. I told him that was a lot of pressure. "What did he say?" He said, "She'll like you because I do." That sounds like Aaron. It sounded sweet at the time. I looked at her, and she gave me a little sideways smile. There was humor in it, but something else too. A warning, maybe. Not about him, exactly. About the danger of letting one person's affection make promises for another. I should say now that Vanessa was not easy, but neither was I. She preferred plans made at least a week ahead. I considered any plan discussed allowed to be settled. She thought it was intrusive when people stopped by without calling. I believed a closed front door was no reason to stand on ceremony with family. Vanessa labeled leftovers. I stored food according to a system based largely on memory and optimism. Once, after finding a jar of gravy in my freezer, she asked how long it had been there. "Not long. What does that mean?" "Before Christmas. It's June." I didn't say which Christmas. She laughed, but she threw the gravy away. "The following month," Aaron proposed. He called me at 10:47 on a Thursday night, and before I could say hello, he shouted, "She said yes." Vanessa shouted from somewhere behind him, He dropped the ring. Once, Aaron said. Twice. The second time was a bounce. I sat on the edge of my bed in one slipper, my heart thumping with the ridiculous force of good news. Frank's side of the mattress had been empty for so long that I no longer noticed it most nights. That night, I put my hand there. "Oh, honey," I said, "your father would be so happy." There was the smallest silence. Then Aaron said, "I know, Mom." I cried. Vanessa cried because I cried. Aaron claimed there was dust in his apartment. We talked until nearly midnight about nothing and everything. The ring, the restaurant, whether Vanessa had suspected, how Aaron had carried the box around for 3 days because every plan kept going wrong. When we hung up, I stayed on the bed with the phone in my lap. Then I went downstairs and opened the cabinet above the refrigerator. Frank had left very little mystery behind him. He labeled extension cords. He kept appliance manuals in alphabetical order. 3 weeks after his funeral, I found a folder containing instructions for canceling his gym membership. The envelope for Aaron was tucked inside that folder. On the front, in Frank's square handwriting, were the words, "For the wedding if he ever gets around to it." Inside was a bank statement and a note. $18,000. Use it to help, not to show off. If he elopes, buy them a furnace. I laughed so suddenly, I scared myself. The next Sunday, I showed the note to Aaron and Vanessa after dinner. Aaron read it twice. His thumb moved over the indentation of his father's handwriting. "He really wrote that?" Vanessa asked. "He thought your generation was irresponsible about furnaces," I said. "He wasn't wrong," Aaron said. "Ours makes a sound like a submarine." Vanessa didn't touch the note. I appreciated that. She waited while Aaron held it, and when he passed it to her, she read it without making the sympathetic face people often made when Frank came up. "This is incredibly generous," she said, "but we don't expect this. I know, we were planning to pay for the wedding ourselves. I know that too." Aaron folded the note along its existing crease. "Mom, are you sure?" I was, or I believed I was, which often feels exactly the same until later. Frank and I had saved that money together. Not enough to transform anyone's life, but enough to ease one expensive day. Aaron was our son. Vanessa would be our family. The thought of helping them felt clean and joyful. "You can use it," I said. "Just don't spend all $18,000 on flowers." Vanessa smiled. "I was thinking 17.5. That leaves 500 for the furnace." Aaron put his face in his hands. "I'm marrying my mother." Both of us told him to shut up. Wedding planning began with 4 people and gradually acquired the administrative complexity of a military landing. Vanessa made a shared digital calendar. Aaron ignored it. I bought a blue binder because I trusted paper. Vanessa's mother, Cynthia, joined us at the first venue tour wearing white slacks and shoes that sank into the lawn. Cynthia was a small, elegant woman who examined rooms by looking upward, as if ceilings revealed character. She was pleasant to me in a manner so complete it left no opening for intimacy. "The light is lovely," she said in the ballroom. "The chairs are ugly," Vanessa said. "They put covers on them," I offered. "That makes them look like ghosts," Aaron said. Vanessa smiled at him. "Exactly." The venue coordinator, a cheerful woman named Paige, told us the larger package included a garden ceremony, ballroom reception, plated dinner, and an outdoor cocktail hour. "What if it rains?" I asked. "We have a covered veranda. What if it's windy? We bring the cocktail hour inside. What if it's hot?" "Mom," Aaron said. "I'm asking. You're interrogating the weather." Paige laughed. "Mothers ask the practical questions." Cynthia glanced at me. "Somebody has to." There was nothing openly insulting in her tone. Still, Vanessa turned toward the windows as if she had discovered something fascinating in the parking lot. We toured 3 more places. Vanessa fell in love with a renovated brick mill beside the river. Aaron loved that it had a room with a pool table where he and his friends could get ready. Cynthia loved the exposed beams. I loved the fact that the bathrooms were close to the ballroom and had actual doors instead of trendy gaps around them. The price was higher than Aaron and Vanessa had planned. Not ruinous, but high enough that they became quiet in Paige's office. "We can reduce the guest count," Vanessa said. Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. "By 40 people? Your mother has 27 cousins." "I do not," I said. "Your father had 27 cousins. Half of them are dead." Paige lowered her eyes to her paperwork. Aaron started laughing. Vanessa tried not to, which made it worse. Even Cynthia's mouth twitched. That was how we chose the place. Not because it was perfect, but because for 5 minutes in that office we sounded like a family. The payment schedule came in 3 installments. I offered to cover the first 2 from Frank's account and reserve the remaining $6,500 for the final balance. Aaron objected once. Vanessa objected twice. I told them I would not offer money I could not afford to give. That sentence would be repeated back to me later, stripped of everything I thought it meant. For the first few months, Vanessa included me in nearly everything. We tasted cake flavors until I never wanted to see buttercream again. We compared table linens, discussed whether eucalyptus looked elegant or smelled like cough drops, and spent an entire Saturday assembling sample centerpieces in my dining room. Elise walked in, stared at the candles and artificial greenery covering the table, and said, "It looks like a tasteful forest fire." Vanessa laughed so hard she had to sit down. Elise took a beer from my refrigerator. At 35, she had inherited Frank's economy with words and my ability to hold a grudge, a combination that had made her very successful and occasionally exhausting. "Are you joining us?" I asked. "I'd rather have dental surgery. We're deciding between gold and champagne napkins. Those are the same color." Vanessa pointed at her. "Thank you." "They are not," I said. Elise kissed my cheek on her way out. "Have fun spending Dad's furnace money." Aaron didn't hear her. Vanessa did. Her smile faded for only a second, but I saw it. A week later, Vanessa had her first bridal dress appointment. I knew because Cynthia posted a picture of champagne glasses in our family text thread. 3 glasses sat on a glass table beside a card that read, "Say yes." I stared at the picture, then typed, "Have a wonderful time." Vanessa responded with a heart. That evening, Aaron called to ask whether I could pick up fabric samples from the florist because he was stuck at work, and Vanessa was having dinner with her mother after shopping. "Of course," I said. "You're the best. How did the dress appointment go?" A beat passed. "Good, I think." She didn't pick one. "Oh." She wanted to keep it small. "I understand." "You do?" The relief in his voice embarrassed me more than the exclusion. "Of course I do." "Thank you, Mom. Seriously, you're the safe one." I wrote the florist's address on the back of an envelope and told him I would handle it. After we hung up, I looked again at Cynthia's photograph. In the mirrored wall behind the champagne glasses, I could make out 4 women standing together, not 3. I enlarged the image with my fingers. Vanessa, Cynthia, Vanessa's sister, and a woman I recognized as Cynthia's closest friend. I closed the picture before I could study their faces. Then I picked up my blue wedding binder and drove across town for the fabric samples, because the florist closed at 6 and Aaron was counting on me. The florist was locking the front door when I pulled into the parking lot. I flashed my headlights, which made her look alarmed, so I held up both hands and mouthed, "Aaron Hale." She unlocked the door 3 inches. "I'm his mother." That did not reassure her. "The wedding," I added. Vanessa Cole. Fabric samples. Recognition finally came. Oh, Marion. She opened the door and let me into a showroom that smelled like wet leaves and refrigerated air. Buckets of roses stood in the darkened cooler. On the counter, 3 squares of fabric had been clipped to a card. Gold, champagne, and something called antique pearl. I held gold beside champagne. They're the same. "They photograph differently," the florist said. My daughter said they were the same. "Your daughter is a brave woman." I liked her. She placed the samples in a white envelope and wrote Vanessa's name across the front. I tucked it into my blue binder between the catering estimate and a list of hotels. Before leaving, I bought a small bunch of yellow tulips I did not need. At home, I put the flowers in a pitcher because Frank had broken my only proper vase while washing it and spent the next 10 years insisting the vase had been structurally unsound. I texted Aaron that I had the samples. "You're a lifesaver," he replied. Vanessa sent a heart 2 minutes later. The heart irritated me, which felt petty. I placed my phone face down and heated soup for dinner. On Sunday, Vanessa arrived carrying a garment bag. "I brought you something," she said. Aaron tried to look inside. She slapped his hand away. "What is it?" I asked. "Not the dress." "Before he gets dramatic." "I'm not dramatic," Aaron said. She gave him a look. "Okay, I'm selectively dramatic." Inside the garment bag was a soft blue dress with a narrow waist and sleeves made of sheer fabric. Not a bridal gown, a mother of the groom dress. "I saw it while we were shopping," Vanessa said. "I thought the color would look beautiful on you." For a moment, every mean little thought I had entertained about the dress appointment shriveled up. "It's lovely. I didn't know your size, so I guessed." Aaron said, "You guessed brave." Vanessa elbowed him. I held the dress against myself. It was more fitted than anything I would have chosen, but the blue reminded me of deep water. Frank used to say I always bought clothes in colors that apologized for existing. "Try it on," Vanessa said. I changed in the downstairs bathroom. The zipper stopped halfway up my back, exactly where my arms could not reach. After 2 minutes of twisting and muttering, I opened the door and called for help. Vanessa came in, eased the zipper up, and adjusted the shoulders. "You guessed right," I said. "I'm very good." She met my eyes in the mirror. "I'm sorry about the appointment." I looked at her reflection. "I should have told you myself," she continued. "My mother arranged it, and I let her invite people. It got bigger than I wanted. 4 is not a crime." No, but posting the picture in the family thread was thoughtless. That sounded like Vanessa, not sentimental, not pleading, just precise about the location of the mistake. "I don't need to be part of everything," I said. "I know, but I don't want you to think I don't want you involved." The dress suddenly felt tight under my arms. "I don't think that." She smiled, though neither of us believed me completely. When we returned to the kitchen, Aaron whistled. "Dad would have liked that color," he said. Vanessa's expression changed so slightly that I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking at her. She turned to the stove and lifted the lid on the pot. "What are we having?" "Pot roast." "Your mother made enough for 14 people," Aaron told her. "I made enough for leftovers. You froze 3 containers last week. Those are soup. This is beef. Civilization depends on categories." The evening recovered. That was the pattern in the early months. Something would tighten, someone would make a joke, and we would all agree through laughter that nothing had happened. The next disagreement was about the guest list. Vanessa and Aaron had set a limit of 140. Cynthia's list contained 63 names. Aaron's contained 48. The remainder was supposed to cover friends and co-workers, but my list included 19 relatives Aaron had not seen in years. 19? Vanessa asked. We were at their apartment, sitting around a coffee table too small for the folders spread across it. Aaron was on the floor with his laptop. Vanessa sat upright on the sofa. I had taken the armchair that faced the television and had to turn sideways to see them. "They came to your graduation," I told Aaron. "My high school graduation and college." "Mom, I graduated college 16 years ago. Family doesn't expire." Vanessa tapped her pen against the paper. "Which of these people would you invite to dinner?" "That's different." "How?" "Dinner is dinner." Aaron looked over his laptop. Powerful argument. I ignored him. The truth was, some of those names belonged more to Frank than to me. His cousin Daniel had called every week during Frank's illness, then stopped after the funeral because neither of us knew what to say without Frank between us. Marie and Joe had brought food, folding chairs, and a roll of paper towels the morning after he died. I could not imagine celebrating Aaron's wedding without giving them the chance to be there. I explained that badly. They mattered to your father, I said. Vanessa put down her pen. We already have a memorial planned for Frank. I'm not inviting them as a memorial. I didn't mean it like that. It sounded like you did. Aaron stared at his screen. Vanessa waited for him to speak. When he didn't, she said, "We can't add 19 people without cutting 19 other people. I'm paying for a third of the wedding." The room went still. I regretted it before the sentence ended. Vanessa leaned back. "Does that purchase 19 seats?" "No, that came out wrong." "How was it supposed to come out?" "I meant the money gives us some flexibility." "Us?" Aaron closed his laptop. "Okay, everybody breathe." "I am breathing," Vanessa said. "So is Mom." Great start. I folded my list once, then opened it again because the crease bothered me. "I offered the money as a gift," I said. "I don't want to vote for every dollar." Vanessa's shoulders lowered a fraction. "But I would like Daniel, Marie, and Joe invited. 3 people. Not because I paid. Because they loved your father and they love Aaron." Aaron finally looked at the list. "That's fair." Vanessa watched him, then nodded. 3. I thanked her, but the words sounded formal. While Aaron ordered takeout, Vanessa went into the bedroom to answer a call from her mother. I began stacking the papers. "You didn't help," I told him quietly. "I got you 3 people. That's not what I mean." He looked toward the bedroom door. "She's under a lot of pressure." I apologized. "I know. Did I embarrass you?" "What?" "No." "Then why did you stare at your computer like it had the answer? Because if I say anything, one of you thinks I'm choosing the other. That's because sometimes you are." He rubbed both hands over his face. "Can we not turn a guest list into a referendum on my character?" I almost said that he was the one getting married, so his character seemed relevant. Instead, I gathered the papers and aligned their edges against the coffee table. "Your father hated making lists. Dad hated making decisions. He was very decisive. He wore the same winter coat for 23 years because buying a new one involved choices." I laughed despite myself. Aaron grinned. "See? We're fine." He kissed my forehead and went to retrieve the food from the lobby. We were fine because I let him decide we were. A few weeks later, Vanessa invited me to help choose the photograph for Frank's memorial. She had designed a small table near the ceremony entrance. 1 framed picture, a candle, and a card with his name. It was tasteful and restrained. I arrived with 12 photographs. Vanessa spread them across her dining table. Frank fishing, Frank dancing with me at Elisa's wedding, Frank holding a spatula in front of a grill engulfed in flames, Frank and Aaron at a baseball game, Frank asleep in a patio chair with a paperback open on his chest. "This one," Vanessa said, touching the baseball photograph. Aaron was 29 in it, not a child, but he looked younger because Frank was beside him. Their shoulders were pressed together. Both were squinting into the sun. "I thought the one from Elisa's wedding," I said. "It's a beautiful picture, but this is Aaron's wedding. He would want people to remember his father as part of the family. He is part of the family in this one." She was right, and I disliked how quickly she was right. I moved the photographs into a stack. "Of course." Vanessa studied me. "You can say if you don't like it. I like it. You do that." "Do what?" "You say, 'of course,' when what you mean is, 'I disagree, but I'd like credit for not saying so.'" I stared at her. Then, to my surprise, I laughed. "That is a terrible thing to say to the woman paying for your flowers." Her eyes widened. "I'm joking." "I know." But she hadn't known. Not immediately. I touched the baseball photograph. "Use this one. It's the right one." She nodded. "Thank you." On my way home, I stopped at Aaron's office with the other pictures because I thought he might want them. He was in a meeting, so the receptionist let me leave the envelope on his desk. That evening, he called. "Vanessa says you seemed upset about Dad's table." I wasn't upset. She thinks the memorial is becoming too much. It's 1 picture and a candle. She means the whole wedding. We mentioned Dad a lot. I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Your father is dead, Aaron. Mentioning him is what I have." That's not fair. No, it isn't. He went quiet. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. That was cruel. I miss him too. I know you do. We just need some parts of the wedding to be about what's happening now. I looked at Frank's empty side of the bed. All right, you're not mad? No. Another relieved breath. Before we hung up, he asked if I had seen the revised reception schedule. I didn't know there was one. It's in the wedding chat. I'm not in a wedding chat. Silence. Then Aaron said, I'm sure Vanessa thought she added you. My phone vibrated before we finished speaking. A new group appeared on my screen with months of earlier messages already sitting above my name. Near the bottom was a reception timeline. Vanessa and her father would dance at 8:15. At 8:20, the band would invite everyone else onto the floor. There was no mother-son dance. I read the schedule twice while Aaron waited on the line. Mom? I see it, I said. Vanessa thought formal dances were a little dated. Her father's dance is still there. That's different. How? He was silent long enough to answer me. Then he said, Can you please be flexible about this? I've been flexible. I know. Do you? That came out wrong. It keeps coming out wrong, Aaron. He sighed, not angrily, wearily, which was worse. Anger would have meant we were arguing about something specific. Weariness made me feel like the something was me. I don't even like dancing, he said. You danced at Elise's wedding. I drank at Elise's wedding. You danced before you drank. Because Dad made me. There it was again. Frank entering a conversation he had not been invited into. I looked at the schedule on my phone. Father-daughter dance, open floor, cake cutting, toasts. Nothing beside my name. If you don't want to dance with me, just say that. It's not that. Then what is it? Vanessa has always pictured this dance with her dad. And you never pictured one with me? He went quiet. The truthful answer would have hurt, but I could have lived with it. Instead, he said, Can we talk about this later? Certainly. Mom. What? You're doing the certainly thing. I thought I did the of course thing. That too. I almost smiled. Good night, Aaron. I ended the call before he could tell me we were fine. The next morning, Vanessa texted me directly. Aaron said you saw the new timeline. I hope you understand. We're trying to keep the reception moving. I typed 3 replies and erased them. The first said that eliminating one 3-minute dance would not rescue the evening from collapse. The second asked how her father's dance managed to fit inside the same evening. The third was simply, I understand. That was the one I sent. She responded with, Thank you for being so gracious. I put the phone in a drawer and left it there while I scrubbed the kitchen sink. Elise came by that afternoon to borrow my carpet cleaner. She had been borrowing it for 4 years. The first time she asked, she had brought it back clean and coiled the cord properly, which meant she was allowed to borrow it forever. She found me on my knees under the sink, reorganizing cleaning supplies. What happened? Nothing. You alphabetize when something happens. I'm not alphabetizing. She picked up 2 spray bottles. Bathroom cleaner before bleach. That's standard safety. Furniture polish before glass cleaner. Go get your machine. She leaned against the counter. Elise wore black trousers, flat shoes, and a green raincoat that made her look like a very competent park ranger. She managed operations for 3 medical offices and could detect dishonesty in the time it took most people to say hello. Is it Aaron? No. Vanessa? No. Cynthia? I looked up. Why would you say Cynthia? Because she says your name like she's checking the pronunciation. Cynthia has been perfectly pleasant. That wasn't my question. I crawled out from under the sink and sat on the floor. They removed the mother-son dance. Elise blinked. Did Aaron want it removed? He says he doesn't like dancing. He doesn't like mushrooms. He still eats them when people are watching. It's their wedding. That is a sentence people use when they want help setting up but don't want opinions. I stood and brushed dust off my knees. I am not making trouble over a dance. You could tell him it hurt. He knows. Did you tell him? He knows me. Elise let out a short laugh with no humor in it. That has saved him a lot of conversations. I opened the hall closet and pulled out the carpet cleaner harder than necessary. A stack of reusable grocery bags fell on my head. Elise picked them up. I don't want to be the mother who makes her son prove he loves her in front of a room full of people, I said. You're not. It's 3 minutes of swaying while everyone watches. I might even hate it. Then why do you care? Because Frank should have been there. Because I could already picture Aaron's hand in mine. Because I had bought the blue dress Vanessa chose and imagined standing in it while the band played the same song Frank used to sing badly in the car. I said, I don't know. Elise set the bags on a shelf. Okay. That was one of the things she did that drove me crazy. She let silence remain silence. Aaron filled it. I escaped it. Elise respected it like property. She rolled the carpet cleaner toward the door. I need it back by Thursday, I said. No, you don't. I might. You won't. Bring it back anyway. She kissed my cheek. Tell him. I did. No, you didn't. After she left, I checked my phone. Aaron had sent a picture of himself wearing a necktie with tiny blue flowers. Vanessa's hand held a plain navy one beside it. Settle this, he wrote. I chose the flowers. He responded, Knew you'd have my back. I laughed because it was funny. Then I hated myself a little for laughing. The second venue payment was due the following Friday. Paige emailed all 3 of us an invoice, and within 7 minutes, Aaron called. You don't have to pay it today, he said. I know. I just wanted to make sure you saw it. I saw it. The due date is Friday. I can read. I wasn't rushing you. You called 7 minutes after it arrived. He chuckled nervously. Okay, maybe I was making sure it didn't go to spam. I'll pay it. Thank you. I logged into the account Frank and I had opened years before. The balance still looked like his money to me, though legally and practically it was mine. I transferred the payment to the venue and watched the number drop. Aaron called again that evening, not about the payment, but to ask how my roof was holding up. Rain had left a brown-edged stain above the kitchen window, and one corner of the plaster had begun to soften. I'm getting estimates, I told him. You said that last month. They're expensive. How expensive? I'm not discussing my roof on your wedding budget. I wasn't suggesting that. You were about to. I was about to offer to help. With what money? He laughed. Good point. I smiled despite myself. After the wedding, he said, I'll come over and fix the plaster. You are not fixing plaster. I watched a video. That is exactly why you're not fixing plaster. For 10 minutes, we were ourselves again. He told me about work. I told him my neighbor had put a stone goose beside his mailbox and dressed it in a raincoat. Aaron said Frank would have stolen it. I said Frank would have denied stealing it while it stood in our yard. Those conversations made everything harder. If Aaron had become entirely cold, I could have defended myself against him. Instead, he kept offering small pieces of the son I knew, and I kept using them to explain away the rest. Vanessa's wedding shower was held at a restaurant with white tablecloths and chairs nobody could sit in comfortably. Cynthia had reserved a private room and assigned seats. Mine was near the end of the table between Vanessa's coworker and a cousin who spent 20 minutes describing a cruise. I had bought Vanessa a set of copper cookware she once admired in a store window. It cost more than I intended, but I liked the weight of it. It looked like something a person kept for years. When Vanessa opened it, her face softened. You remembered. Of course. She came around the table and hugged me. For one warm second, I could smell her perfume and feel the familiar pressure of her chin against my shoulder. Cynthia raised her glass. To Marion, our very own wedding fairy. Everyone laughed. I did too, though I wasn't sure what she meant. She has saved us more times than I can count, Vanessa said. With checkbook and clipboard, Cynthia added. Another laugh. Vanessa glanced at me. She must have seen something because she said, and moral support. Mostly clipboard, I said, turning the moment into a joke before it could decide what it was. Later, while the other guests crowded around the dessert table, Cynthia joined me near the coat rack. "I hope you know how grateful we are," she said. "I'm happy to help. Aaron is fortunate. Vanessa and I have always been very independent with each other." It took me a moment to find the shape of that sentence. That sounds healthy. I think it is. She knows I'm there, but I don't need to be involved in every decision. Neither do I. Of course not. There was that phrase again, polished until it reflected nothing. Cynthia touched my arm. "I only meant it's wonderful you have the energy." Before I could answer, she walked away to supervise the loading of gifts. On the drive home, I called Elise. "Am I over-involved?" "Yes." The speed of her answer annoyed me. "You could pretend to consider it. I've considered it for 35 years. I mean, with the wedding. Also, yes." "Do you think Vanessa resents me?" "I think Vanessa likes you and resents you." "That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. You like her and resent her. I do not resent her." Elise was quiet. "Fine," I said. "Sometimes." "Mom, you offered money, then attached yourself to the work, because work is how you make sure nobody can leave you out. That is a cruel thing to say. It isn't meant to be." "Well, that's lucky." She sighed. "Do you want me to lie?" "No." "Yes. I'm hanging up. I love you. I love you too." I ended the call and drove the rest of the way with the copper-colored sunset flashing between buildings. At home, I carried my blue binder into the dining room and opened it. The binder had grown fat with contracts, lists, fabric scraps, hotel information, and copies of every invoice. I began removing pages that did not require me. Band schedule, floral layout, ceremony cues. I made a neat pile and placed it in a large envelope for Vanessa. For the next several weeks, I practiced being less involved. When Vanessa asked whether garden roses or standard roses looked better, I said both were lovely. When Aaron complained about the seating chart, I told him to speak to Vanessa. When Cynthia emailed asking me to confirm transportation for out-of-town guests, I forwarded it to Aaron. Then Vanessa called me late on a Tuesday. "Are you upset with me?" "No, you've pulled back. I thought that was what you wanted. I wanted boundaries, Marion, not frostbite." I sat at the kitchen table, surprised into silence. "I miss talking to you," she said. The admission sounded genuine. That was Vanessa's most disarming quality. Her tenderness appeared exactly when I had convinced myself it wasn't there. "I miss you too. Can we start over? I'd like that." The next Saturday, she came to my house with coffee, and we assembled welcome bags for the hotel guests. We folded tissue paper, tied navy ribbons, and argued pleasantly about whether anyone wanted locally made crackers at midnight. Aaron arrived with lunch and kissed the tops of both our heads. My favorite women are getting along. Vanessa and I exchanged a look. "Don't ruin it," she said. He held up his hands. For 3 hours, we were easy together. When Vanessa left, she hugged me and thanked me twice. I loaded the finished bags into my car the following week and drove them to the venue, where Paige met me beside the ballroom. "You can leave them in the office," she said. "We'll distribute them Friday morning." On her desk sat an open carton labeled Programs. A cream booklet rested on top. "Oh, they're finished," I said. Paige smiled. "They came out beautifully." I picked one up. Frank's photograph appeared on the final page above a short memorial Vanessa had written. The words were lovely, better than anything I could have written without crying. I turned back to the family acknowledgement. Vanessa's parents were named, Cynthia and David Cole, with gratitude for their love, guidance, and support. Aaron's late father was named again. My eyes moved over the page once, then returned to the top and searched more slowly. My name was not there. I checked the front page, thinking perhaps Mother's were listed somewhere else. They weren't. Paige noticed what I was doing. Her professional smile tightened at the corners. "Is this the final version?" I asked. "I believe so. Who approved it?" She turned toward her computer, even though she already knew. Vanessa signed off on the proof. "And Aaron?" "I'm not sure." That meant no. I read the acknowledgement again. Cynthia and David had given love, guidance, and support. Frank's memory would surround Aaron and Vanessa as they began their life together. Apparently, my money would surround them anonymously. Paige picked up a clipboard. If there's an error, I can ask the printer what a correction would cost. No. It might be possible to add an insert. I'm not asking you to fix it. I understand. She had the soft, practiced voice of someone who had watched families break into factions over chair covers. I set the program back on the carton. May I see the seating chart? The current one? That would be the useful one. She opened a file on her computer and turned the screen toward me. The ballroom appeared as pale circles and rectangles. The long table closest to the dance floor held Aaron, Vanessa, the wedding party, Cynthia, David, and Vanessa's sister. Table 14, near the service doors, held my name along with Daniel, Marie, Joe, and 2 couples I had met once at Vanessa's engagement party. I pointed to it. Is this the only family table? Paige hesitated. Vanessa wanted to mix the groups, except at the head table. I can't speak to her intention. No, of course you can't. I thanked her, left the welcome bags in the office, and walked back through the ballroom. Workers had begun hanging strings of small lights from the exposed beams. The chairs were stacked along one wall, bare and harmless without the ghostly covers. Near the windows, a man on a ladder measured the space where the memorial table would stand. My dead husband had a better place in the room than I did. The thought was ugly. Frank would have hated it, and that made me angrier. I sat in my car with the air conditioning running and called Aaron. He did not answer. Vanessa did. Hey, Marion, did the bags get there? Yes. Thank you. I know that was a lot of work. I saw the programs. Silence replaced the brightness in her voice. They look beautiful, I said. The memorial for Frank is lovely. I'm glad you like it. Why isn't my name in the family acknowledgement? Another silence, shorter this time. It wasn't meant to be a complete list. It names your parents. They contributed a lot, so have I. I know that. Does the program? She exhaled. Can we not do this on the phone? I've been trying not to do this anywhere. Aaron and I can come over tonight. I'd appreciate that. She paused. Are you at the venue? Yes. Did you ask Paige to change anything? No. Okay. That single word told me she had expected I might. When they arrived that evening, Aaron carried a paper bag from the Italian restaurant near my house. I brought dinner, he said. I'm not hungry. Well, I am. He set the bag on the counter and began unpacking containers as though we had gathered for an ordinary Tuesday. Vanessa placed her purse on the back of a chair and stayed standing. You remodeled, she said. I looked around my kitchen. No, I didn't. The curtains. I washed them. Oh. Aaron held up a container. Eggplant or lasagna? Please sit down. He stopped trying to be charming. We sat at the same table where I had shown them Frank's note. I had placed a program in front of my chair. Paige had let me take one after all. Vanessa looked at it. I didn't exclude your name to hurt you. Why did you exclude it? The acknowledgement is for the bride's parents. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say mother of the groom either. Exactly. Aaron rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. Mom, it's just the program. No, the fabric samples were just fabric. The dance was just 3 minutes. The group chat was an oversight. My seat at the back of the room is apparently just a chair. His hand stopped. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. You looked at the seating chart? I asked to see where I was sitting. You went through our venue coordinator. I was standing in the venue. You could have asked us. I have been asking both of you for months. Aaron said, You know Daniel and Marie. They are there because I asked you to invite them. They are not a substitute for you. I'll be 15 feet away, at a head table with Vanessa's parents. It's not a statement. Then why are they there? Vanessa crossed her arms. Because my father is giving a toast, my sister is in the wedding party, and the table had limited space. I am Aaron's mother. I'm aware. The words landed harder because she did not raise her voice. Aaron looked at her. Vanessa. What? I am constantly aware. The The room changed. She pushed her chair back and stood, though she didn't leave. "I have tried," she said. "I included you. I asked your opinions. I let you add people after we finalized the guest list. I changed the memorial photograph because you wanted to discuss 12 options. You chose the photograph after we had to turn it into a whole conversation. It was a conversation about my husband at my wedding, your wedding to his son." She pressed her lips together. Aaron stared at the unopened food. I forced myself to lower my voice. "Tell me what you think I've done." Vanessa laughed once, quietly. "You want a list?" "Yes." Every decision becomes connected to Frank. The dress color was something Frank would like. The guest list was people Frank loved. The memorial had to show Frank as part of the whole family. The dance became about a song he used to sing. Even the money is Frank's wedding account, Frank's note, Frank's wish. You knew the money came from him. I know, I'm grateful. But sometimes it feels like I'm marrying into a memorial service. Aaron flinched. I could not speak for a moment. Frank's photograph sat on the shelf behind Vanessa. He was laughing in it, his glasses slipping down his nose. I had spent years talking about him as if keeping his name in the room could keep his chair from being empty. Maybe I had not noticed how often everyone else had to make space. "You're right," I said. Vanessa's arms loosened. "I mention him too much, especially with Aaron. I can see how that might make you feel like there are 3 people in your marriage." "Mom," Aaron said. "No, she's right about that part." Vanessa sat again. "I am sorry," I told her. "I will step back. I won't contact vendors unless you ask. I won't offer opinions you don't request. The memorial can be whatever you want or you can remove it. I don't want to remove it." "Fine." She nodded, and for one hopeful second I thought we had reached solid ground. Then I placed my hand on the program. But stepping back is not the same as being erased. "Nobody is erasing you," Aaron said. "Where am I then?" "You're here. I mean at the wedding." "You're a guest. I'm your mother." "You said that already," Vanessa murmured. I looked at her, and apparently it keeps being new information. She stood again. Aaron said my name sharply. "Mom." "What would you like me to call this? I am good enough to pay the venue, assemble the bags, collect samples, and buy cookware, but not good enough for a line in the program, a place near my son, or 3 minutes on the dance floor." "That is not why we cut the dance," Vanessa said. "Then tell me why." "Because every time Frank comes up, Aaron spends the next 2 days feeling guilty for being happy without him." I turned to my son. His eyes remained on the table. "Is that true?" He took a long breath. "Sometimes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you'd react like this." "Like what? Like I'm abandoning you?" I sat back. He looked up then, and I saw something I had not wanted to see. Not cruelty. Fear. He had been afraid of my grief for years, and I had mistaken his carefulness for closeness. "I don't want you to be unhappy," I said. "I know." "Do you?" Vanessa reached for her purse. "We should go." I watched Aaron expect me to stop them. I could see it in the slight delay before he stood. "Can we decide one thing before you leave?" I asked. "Am I sitting with my family?" He closed his eyes briefly. "Mom, please don't make the seating arrangement bigger than it is." Vanessa opened the kitchen door. Cold air entered the room. Aaron gathered the untouched food, hesitated, then left it on the counter. He kissed my cheek on the way out. That almost broke me. The final invoice arrived the following afternoon. I printed it because I printed everything involving money. The page was still warm when my phone rang. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. I answered and set the invoice beside the program. "Hi, Marion." "Hello, Aaron's here with me." I assumed he would be. She took a breath. "After last night, we think it might be better if you didn't attend the wedding." For a moment, the kitchen became strangely bright. I noticed crumbs under the toaster, a chip in the sugar bowl, and a drop of water moving down the wall beneath the stain. "Who is we?" I asked. "I'm here, Mom," Erin said. I looked at the final balance. "So I'm not welcome at your wedding, but you still expect me to pay the final installment." "We've made commitments based on that money," Vanessa said. "The payment is due Friday. That is not an answer. We need your final payment, not your presents." I waited for Erin. "Mom, please," he said. "Don't make this harder than it already is. What exactly do you believe I'm making hard?" "The wedding. My marriage. Everything. You are uninviting your mother." "Temporarily," he said, then seemed to hear himself. I mean, from one event. "We can have dinner after the honeymoon, just us. A private dinner, offered like a consolation prize nobody else needed to know about. Your father left that money so we could help celebrate your wedding. It is my wedding. Yes. He meant it for me. He meant it for something we would be part of." Vanessa said, "So the gift does come with conditions." "Only one," I said. "You cannot demand that I disappear while my money takes my seat." Erin's voice hardened. "Are you refusing to pay?" "Yes." Neither of them spoke. "The first 2 payments remain yours," I said. "I won't interfere with anything you've already planned. But I will not send the final $6,500. "You promised," Erin said. "So did you. What did I promise?" I looked at the program with Frank's name printed twice and mine nowhere, that I was family. He made a wounded sound, almost a scoff. Vanessa said, "We have nothing else to discuss." The call ended. I stayed at the table until the water reached the bottom of the wall. Then I got a mixing bowl from the cabinet, placed it beneath the leak, and listened to the first drop strike the metal. The drip kept time for the rest of the afternoon. I emptied the bowl twice, though it was nowhere near full. Each time I carried it to the sink with both hands and poured out less than a cup of water. At 5:30, Erin texted, "Please reconsider before Friday. We don't want this to become permanent." I read the message until the word "this" lost its meaning. I typed, "Neither do I." Then I erased it. He had not said he wanted me at the wedding. He wanted the payment and the disappearance to remain temporary, a bruise we could cover later with a private dinner. I put the phone back in the drawer. At 6:15, Elise let herself in through the side door. "Why is there a bowl under the window? My roof leaks. Your roof has leaked for a year. Why is there a bowl now? Because it's raining now." She took off her green coat and hung it over a chair. "Erin called me." Of course he had. "What did he tell you?" "That you canceled the final venue payment after a disagreement." "I didn't cancel anything. His exact phrase was, 'Mom pulled the money.'" "I never sent it." Elise studied my face. "What happened?" I sat at the kitchen table and told her, not elegantly. I jumped backward to the program, forward to the phone call, then back again to the seating chart. When I repeated Vanessa's sentence, my voice shook, so I got up and wiped a clean section of counter. Elise remained still. "He was on the call?" she asked. "Yes." "And what did he say?" "He asked me not to make it harder." Her jaw tightened. "I'll kill him." "No, you won't. I'll inconvenience him severely." Despite everything, I laughed. She came around the counter and pulled me against her. Elise did not hug gently. She hugged like she was trying to keep a piece of furniture from falling over. "I'm sorry," she said into my hair. I held onto her coat sleeves. I kept waiting for him to say something. "I know. Vanessa said it, but I kept waiting for him. I know." When she released me, she opened the refrigerator, inspected the shelves, and took out eggs, cheese, and a container of chopped peppers. "I'm not hungry," I said. "That's not relevant." She made omelets while I sat at the table. She dropped one on the floor, said a word Frank would have admired, and started again. Halfway through dinner, she asked, "Are you going to pay?" "No." "Good. You said that too quickly. I don't need to consider whether you should pay $6,500 to be banned from a wedding. It was your father's money. It's your money. He intended it for Erin. He intended it to help. I already paid most of it. Then Erin has already received more help than most people get." I moved a pepper around my plate. Elise set down her fork. You understand this is going to get ugly. It already is. No, this is private ugly. I mean family ugly. She was right. My sister Diane called before Elise finished washing the dishes. Diane was 2 years younger than I was and spoke with the confidence of someone who had been given half a story and found it sufficient. Tell me you did not pull the venue payment 10 days before the wedding. Hello to you too, Marion. I did not pull anything. I refused to make a payment that wasn't due yet. That is the same thing with better grammar. Elise looked over from the sink. I waved her off and she stayed exactly where she was. Did Aaron tell you I've been uninvited? I asked. He said there was a terrible argument and everybody needed time to cool down. I was told not to come. To the rehearsal? To the wedding? Diane went quiet. I heard a television in the background and her husband asking a question. She told him to lower it. That doesn't make sense, she said. No. Why would they do that? Vanessa says, my presence creates tension. What did you do? The question was practical, almost sympathetic. It still cut. I objected to being omitted from the program and seated in the back while her parents sit with the couple. You called them about that? They came here. Did you raise your voice? I don't remember. Marion. Yes, probably. They uninvited me the next day. Diane sighed. Pay it. I closed my eyes. I'm not saying they're right, she continued. They're wrong. Completely wrong. But if you refuse now, the entire wedding becomes about the money. The entire wedding is already about my money. No, it isn't. They just told me they need it more than they need me. Then be the mother. Let them be selfish and immature. You be bigger. How much bigger do I have to become before there's no room left for me? Elise turned off the faucet. Diane lowered her voice. This is Aaron's wedding. You get one chance to handle this in a way you can live with. So does he. I'm trying to protect your relationship, then call him. She did not answer. That told me exactly whom the family expected to bend. I love you, Diane said. I just think you will regret this. I already regret everything about it. We ended the call without resolving anything. Elise dried her hands on a dish towel. She's going to call everyone. She wouldn't. She called me before she called you. I put my forehead in my hands. By Thursday morning, 3 cousins and an aunt had checked on me with suspicious casualness. Daniel asked if I needed a ride to the ceremony. When I told him I wasn't attending, he said, "Oh," in a way that meant he knew more than he wanted to admit. Cynthia sent an email. Marion, I am devastated that the stress has reached this point. Whatever your differences with Vanessa, I hope you will honor your commitment so the wedding can proceed as planned. There will be opportunities for healing after the event. She signed it warmly. I read the email to Elise over the phone. She makes extortion sound like a spa brochure, Elise said. It isn't extortion, I know. That's why I said sound like. I did not respond to Cynthia. I emailed Paige instead. Please direct all future invoices and payment questions to Aaron and Vanessa. I will not be responsible for the remaining balance. The payments already made are gifts and should remain credited to their event. Paige replied that she understood and wished our family the best. I imagined her closing the email and adding my wedding to the list of stories she would tell her coworkers after retirement. That afternoon, I called the roofing company whose estimate had been sitting in my desk for 6 weeks. The receptionist found my file. Mrs. Hale, the full replacement is still good through the end of the month. I'd like to schedule it. We require a deposit. Send me the invoice. The words made my stomach turn, though the roof had nothing to do with the wedding and had needed replacing before Aaron proposed. When the estimate arrived, I printed it and placed it beside the venue invoice. The roof cost more than the final wedding payment. I could afford it, but writing the check meant admitting I had postponed taking care of my own house while paying for one perfect day in somebody else's life. At 7, Aaron knocked on my front door. He had not used his key. I let him in. He looked tired. His tie was loosened and rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. For one foolish second, I thought he had come to apologize. We have until noon tomorrow, he said. I stepped aside. Come in. He entered but did not remove his coat. "Vanessa's at home," he said. "She doesn't know I'm here." "Does that mean I should whisper?" "Mom, what would you like me to say that you'll pay the balance?" "No." His face hardened. "You didn't even think about it. I have thought of nothing else. The venue is willing to move us into the smaller ballroom and reduce the catering package. We'd still lose some deposits. Vanessa's parents can cover part, but not all of it. I'm sorry." "No, you're not. I'm sorry you planned a wedding you couldn't afford without me. You promised us that money, and you accepted it while removing me piece by piece. That's not what happened." "What happened then?" He pushed both hands into his coat pockets. "You kept making Vanessa feel like the wedding belonged to you and Dad. I apologized for that. Then you turned around and made a scene about the program. In my kitchen." It was still a scene. I almost laughed. I'm not sure where you would prefer a mother make a scene about being erased from her son's wedding. You weren't erased. I was uninvited. Because Vanessa doesn't feel safe with you there. Safe from what? You judging everything, making comments, looking hurt until everyone has to comfort you. I stared at him. He looked away first. "Is that what you think I do?" I asked. "Sometimes." "Then why have you asked me for help every week for the past 11 months? Because you wanted to help, and because you wanted the help." He walked to the window and looked at the bowl beneath the leak. "You always do this," he said. "You give, and then when somebody doesn't do what you want, we find out the gift was a test. That is fairer than I wish it were." He turned, surprised. "I have used help to keep myself necessary," I said. "Elise told me that, and I didn't like hearing it from her either. But this is not a test. You have given me the answer." "What answer?" "How much of me you are willing to lose." He shook his head. "You're withholding love because you can't control one day. I am not withholding love. I am withholding $6,500. The fact that you confuse the two may be the problem." His mouth opened, then closed. Rain struck the window harder. A drop hit the metal bowl. "Do you want me at your wedding?" I asked. He rubbed his palms against his coat. "I want peace." "That isn't what I asked. I want one day where nobody is upset." "Then you should not have helped uninvite your mother 10 days before it." He looked at me for a long time. "If we have to change everything tomorrow," he said, "Vanessa will never forgive you. Will you?" "I don't know." There it was. Not a threat. An answer. I nodded and opened the door. He stepped onto the porch, then turned back. "Dad would be ashamed." The words entered cleanly, like a knife sharpened for one purpose. I gripped the doorknob. "Your father would be ashamed that you used him to say that." Aaron flinched. I closed the door before either of us could take back what we had done. At noon the next day, my bank balance did not change. At 12:17, Aaron sent one message. "We made other arrangements. Please don't contact us until after the wedding." A moment later, the wedding group disappeared from my phone. I stared at the empty space where the group had been. Months of messages vanished with it. Menu changes, hotel addresses, pictures of flowers, arguments about napkins, jokes, reminders, all of it gone from my screen because someone had pressed remove. I opened my text thread with Aaron. His last message sat there like a locked door. "Please don't contact us until after the wedding." I turned the phone off. The roofing company called 15 minutes later. A man named Wayne could come Tuesday to confirm measurements and inspect the attic. "Tuesday is fine," I said. "Any active leaking?" "Yes." "Put a bucket under it. I'm ahead of you." His practical concern nearly undid me. Elise arrived that evening without calling. She walked into the kitchen, set down 2 grocery bags, and looked at my phone sitting dark on the counter. "You've been removed," she said. "How do you know?" "I'm still in the group." "Of course." They posted the revised details. I don't want to hear them. Okay. She began putting groceries away. Coffee, bread, oranges, cheese, a frozen lasagna. I took the cheese out of the refrigerator and handed it back to her. "I have food. You have mustard, soup, and 6 containers of leftovers you won't eat because they're for Aaron. They are not for Aaron. She opened the freezer and read a label. Aaron, pot roast. I label things now. That isn't the point. She put the cheese back. I sat at the table. Are you going? Elise closed the refrigerator slowly. I haven't decided. He's your brother. You're my mother. This is not a vote. No, apparently it's assigned seating. Don't. She pulled out the chair across from me. If I go, I'm showing them this is acceptable, she said. If I don't, he'll say you turned me against him. I have not turned you against anyone. I know that. He may not. I want you to make your own decision. That sounds very healthy. I don't trust it. I almost smiled. She leaned forward. What do you actually want? I wanted her to stay home with me. I wanted Aaron to look out during his ceremony and see every empty place his choice had created. I wanted no one to dance. I wanted the cake to tilt. I wanted him happy. I wanted him miserable enough to understand me. All those wishes existed together, none canceling the others. I don't want to cost you your brother, I said. You're not. Then go if you want to go. Stay away if you want to stay away, but don't make me the reason. She looked down at her hands. I'll go to the ceremony. I nodded. I'm not staying for the whole reception. You don't need my permission. I'm not asking for it. That stung, which meant she had probably needed to say it. On Sunday, Diane came over carrying a chicken casserole in a glass dish. I brought dinner. I'm not sick. You don't have to be sick for chicken. In this family, chicken in a glass dish means somebody died or had surgery. Can I come in? I moved aside. She put the casserole in my refrigerator and inspected the bowl under the window. You're finally fixing the roof. Tuesday. Good. She said it with such cautious approval that I knew the casserole was an excuse. We sat in the living room. Diane kept her purse in her lap. Aaron called you, I said. Yesterday. What did he want? For me to talk to you. The deadline passed. He still thinks the venue might let them restore the original package if you pay by Monday. No, I told him you'd say that. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. I looked toward the hallway. The blue dress hung in the downstairs closet, still inside Vanessa's garment bag. Diane followed my gaze. People are saying you demanded to sit at the head table. I asked to sit with my family. They're saying you threatened to stop payment unless they changed the program and put the dance back. I had already agreed to lose the dance. You shouldn't have had to. No. But you did mention the money during the guest list argument. How do you know that? She looked away. Did Aaron tell you or Vanessa? Cynthia. Of course. She called because she's worried about you. Cynthia is worried I might tell people her daughter uninvited me after taking $11,500. Diane's mouth tightened. That number makes it sound worse. It is the number. You know what I mean. I stood and retrieved the program from the kitchen. I placed it in her hands. She read the family acknowledgement, then turned to Frank's memorial. It's beautiful, she said. Yes. She returned to the acknowledgement and searched again. You're not in here. No, that could have been a mistake. It wasn't. Diane closed the booklet. I still think you should have paid. I laughed because the alternative was throwing the program. What exactly would be too much for you, I asked. If they made me wait in the parking lot? If Vanessa asked me to serve dinner? At what point would you let me stop being gracious? That isn't fair. Neither is asking me to accept humiliation because the invitations have already been mailed. I'm trying to prevent a permanent break. So am I. By refusing? By refusing to teach him that I will tolerate anything. Diane looked down at the program. Frank would know what to do. The sentence softened something in me, though I did not agree. Frank would walk into the reception carrying the stone goose from next door, I said. Diane smiled. He'd put a bow tie on it. He'd claim it was Aaron's best man. For a minute, we missed him together instead of using him. Then Diane reached across and took my hand. I'm sorry you're not going. It was the first uncomplicated thing anyone had said to me. The day before the wedding, the dry cleaner called to remind me that I had left a shawl for pickup. I had bought it to wear with the blue dress in case the ballroom was cold. I considered leaving it there. Instead, I drove across town and collected it. At home, I tried on the dress. It still fit. Vanessa had been right about the color. It made my eyes look brighter and my waist look smaller, and for one disloyal moment, I wished it had been ugly. I put on the shawl. I stood in front of the bedroom mirror and imagined the evening as it had once existed in my mind. Aaron walking toward me across the dance floor, his hand at my back. Frank absent but present in the familiar shape of our son's face. The imagined song lasted longer than the real dance ever would have. I took off the shawl, reached for the zipper, and remembered the small velvet box in the top drawer of Frank's dresser. The cufflinks were silver with narrow blue stones. Frank had worn them at our wedding, at Elise's wedding, and to every formal occasion in between. He claimed they were lucky, even though one had fallen into a restaurant sink during our 25th anniversary dinner. I had planned to give them to Aaron the morning of the ceremony. I had rehearsed what I would say, which was unlike me. Your father wore these when he promised me his life. I think he'd want you to wear them when you promise yours. The box sat in my palm. That was when I cried. Not gracefully. I sat on the bedroom floor in the blue dress and made sounds I would have been embarrassed for anyone to hear. I cried for the wedding, for Frank, for the final payment, for the relief in Aaron's voice every time I agreed to disappear a little more. I cried because the person I wanted comfort from was the person who had caused the wound. When it passed, my ribs hurt. I returned the cufflinks to the drawer. Then I took off the dress, hung it in the garment bag, and closed the closet. The wedding morning was overcast but dry. I made coffee at 6 and cleaned the kitchen. At 9, I considered going to the grocery store, then imagined seeing someone I knew. I stayed home. Elise came by before the ceremony wearing a dark red dress and carrying flat shoes in a tote bag. "You look beautiful," I said. "You're required to say that." "No, I'm not. Apparently I have no requirements today." She winced. "Do you want me to stay?" "No, I will. I know." "Go." She looked toward the hall closet. "Where's the blue dress?" "Put away." Aaron asked if I had the cufflinks. I went still. "What did you say?" "That I didn't know." "Good. Do you want me to take them?" "No." She nodded once. At the door, she hugged me. "I won't lie if anyone asks where you are. Don't make a speech. I don't make speeches. You make statements that end conversations. That's efficient." After she left, I turned off my phone again. At the time the ceremony was supposed to begin, I sat at the kitchen table with a cheese sandwich. I knew exactly where everyone would be. Vanessa near the doors with Cynthia adjusting her veil. Aaron in the side room pretending not to be nervous. Frank's photograph waiting beside the candle. At 2:30, I went upstairs and opened the cufflink box. At 3:15, I put it away. At 4, I turned on my phone. Messages filled the screen. Diane had written that the ceremony was lovely. Daniel said he was thinking of me. Marie sent only a heart. Elise's message was last. They're married. Aaron looked for you when he came in. I read it twice. Then I typed, I hope they're happy. The reception pictures began appearing that evening. The smaller ballroom had plain walls instead of exposed brick. The floral arrangements were low and simple. The head table was gone. Aaron and Vanessa sat alone at a small table near the dance floor. Cynthia and David sat nearby. At table 14, my empty chair had been removed. In one photograph, Vanessa danced with her father while Aaron watched. I did not look for another. The next morning, Cynthia posted a picture of the newly married couple beneath the words, "A beautiful day surrounded by the family who showed up with love." Diane called immediately. "Don't respond," she said. "I wasn't going to. She shouldn't have written that. No. Do you want me to say something?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." I closed the post and called Wayne from the roofing company. "I'm ready to pay the deposit," I told him. Afterward, I took the blue dress from the closet. I folded it into tissue paper and placed it in a box on the highest shelf. It was the first thing I stopped saving for a day that had already happened. The roofers arrived Tuesday at 7:12 in the morning, 6 minutes after I had stepped out of the shower. I opened the door wearing a robe and one earring. Wayne looked past me toward the kitchen. "You said the leak was over a window?" "Good morning to you, too." He removed his cap. "Sorry." "Good morning." A younger man behind him tried not to smile. By 8, the house sounded as if it were being attacked by determined woodpeckers. Men crossed the roof above my head. Bundles landed with heavy thuds. Old shingles slid into a trailer in the driveway, and every picture on the upstairs hallway wall tilted slightly to the left. I made coffee for everyone. Wayne accepted 1 cup, black. The others had arrived carrying energy drinks large enough to restart a heart. At 10, Wayne asked me to come outside. He showed me a section of damp wood beneath the old shingles, more rot than we could see from the attic. "How much?" "I'll work it up." That means a lot. It means I'll work it up. The additional estimate came to $1,200. I stared at the number on his tablet. "We can patch only the worst section," he said, "but if this were my house, I'd replace all the damaged decking while it's open." Frank would have asked 7 questions, disagreed with the answers, called another company, and spent 3 days comparing wood prices. I wanted him there so badly, I became annoyed with him for being dead. "Do it properly," I said. Wayne nodded and touched the screen. The money came from my regular savings, not the wedding account, but all money had begun to feel connected. $6,500 existed in one column because I had refused to send it somewhere else. $1,200 disappeared because I had finally looked up at my own ceiling. The roofers left before dark. The house smelled faintly of sawdust and hot asphalt. For the first time in months, rain was forecast and I did not need a bowl. I made pot roast without thinking. Halfway through chopping an onion, I realized I was making Aaron's version, with carrots cut large because he said small ones turned to paste. I put down the knife. For years, I had cooked according to the possibility of his arrival. Sunday dinner, Tuesday leftovers, soup in case work became hectic. He had never asked me to do most of it. That mattered. It did not absolve him, but it mattered. I finished the pot roast and labeled 2 containers, Marion. It looked ridiculous, so I crossed out my name and wrote, beef. The wedding photographs continued appearing online. I stopped looking after I saw Cynthia's post, but other people delivered them to me as though I might have missed my own absence. Diane called to say the cake had leaned slightly. "Not enough to fall," she added. I didn't ask. "I thought you'd find it funny." "I don't." "All right." A cousin texted that Vanessa's second dress was more flattering than the first. I had not known there was a second dress. Marie sent a picture of the memorial table because she thought I would want to see how lovely Frank looked. She meant well. I thanked her and then sat in my car for 20 minutes because I had opened the message in the grocery store parking lot and could not remember why I had come. Elise called while I was still there. "Where are you?" "In my car." "Your car where?" I looked through the windshield. "Near the cart return." That narrows it down. The grocery store. "What are you buying?" "I don't remember." "Go home. I need something." "You can need it tomorrow." I went home. The silence from Aaron lasted through the honeymoon. I knew they had gone somewhere warm because Diane accidentally mentioned palm trees, then stopped speaking as if she had disclosed military coordinates. I did not contact him. Each morning I checked my phone before I put on my glasses, which meant I held it 3 inches from my face and squinted at the screen. Nothing from Aaron. Nothing from Vanessa. On the 9th day, he texted, "Do you have Marie and Joe's mailing address?" "We're doing thank you cards." I sent the address. "Thanks," he replied. I waited for more. Nothing came. The following day, he asked whether Daniel's last name had 1 L or 2. I answered. He thanked me again. The politeness was unbearable. On Sunday, I set the table for 1. At 5:15, my hand reached automatically for the second placemat. I put it back. I ate in front of the television, something Frank and I had forbidden for decades except during baseball. The freedom felt cheap. Elise arrived while I was rinsing my plate. "I was nearby," she said. "You live 25 minutes away. I was nearby 25 minutes ago." She carried a cardboard box into the kitchen. "What is that?" "The carpet cleaner. You brought it back? Don't make this emotional." The cord was wrapped correctly. The water tank had been rinsed and dried. "You are my favorite," I said. "I'm your only daughter." "Still counts." Her face shifted, not enough to call an expression. I opened the freezer. "Do you want pot roast?" "No. You should take some. I have food. You work late. So do lots of people. It's already frozen." She leaned against the counter. "You don't have to start feeding me because Aaron isn't coming. I am not starting anything. You made the carrots small." I looked at the container in my hand. She was right. Elise had always preferred them that way. I made food. For me. Is that a problem? It is, if I'm your replacement project. That is a terrible phrase. It's an accurate phrase. I returned the container to the freezer. "You're angry with me," I said. "I'm angry for you." "No, that's easier." She looked toward the dining room, where one placemat still sat on the table. I waited. Finally, she said, "Do you remember when I got promoted to regional manager?" "Of course." "We were supposed to have dinner at Bellini's." "Yes." "You canceled because Aaron's furnace stopped working." I remembered the phone call. Aaron had been sitting in a cold house waiting for a repairman. I brought space heaters, soup, and 2 extra blankets. The furnace was repaired before 9. "We celebrated the next weekend," I said. "You took me to lunch between errands. I didn't realize it mattered that much. That's the problem." The sentence was quiet. It sat between us without any decoration. "Elise, you always said I was easy, independent. You're solid one." "You are." I became solid because there wasn't much reward in falling apart. Aaron had emergencies. I had accomplishments. Emergencies got dinner. My first instinct was to defend the record. I had attended her graduation, helped her move twice, sat with her through the collapse of her marriage, and repainted her bedroom after the divorce because she could not stand the color her former spouse had chosen. All of that was true. It was also not what she was talking about. "I thought respecting your independence was a compliment," I said. "It was, until it became an excuse." I pulled out a chair and sat. She remained standing. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I did." "When?" "Not in one perfect speech you could understand all at once." That sounded so much like me that I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry." She rubbed her forehead. "Don't apologize just because Aaron hurt you and now you're auditing the family. I'm apologizing because I made you feel less worthy of care for needing less help." Her hand dropped. "I don't know how to fix that," I continued, "and I don't want to turn you into a project." "Good. But I would like to take you to dinner." "That's exactly a project." "No. A project would involve a reservation and an inappropriate centerpiece. I'm asking if you want food." She looked at me for several seconds. "Not pot roast. Fine. Thai." "I don't understand Thai menus. You point at a number. That is not understanding. It's enough." We ordered food from a place near her apartment. I drove, and for once I did not criticize the way she parked. Over dinner, she told me about a physician at work who kept using the staff refrigerator for medical samples despite being told to stop. "What kind of samples?" I asked. "You don't want to know. I definitely want to know." "No." "Blood?" She ate a spring roll. "Urine?" Have some dignity. "Hair? You're just naming body parts now." We laughed until the people at the next table looked over. On the drive home, I realized we had spent 2 hours together without discussing Aaron, the wedding, Frank, or anything I could do for her. It felt good. It also felt unfamiliar, which was its own indictment. The next week, I tried to correct too quickly. I called Elise 3 times. I offered to bring lunch to her office. I sent her a link to a coat I thought she would like. When I volunteered to organize her garage, she said, "Mom, you have swung past normal and landed in surveillance." "I'm making an effort." Make less. I don't know what that means. Ask me how I am and believe my answer. So I tried. The roof was completed on Friday. Wayne took me outside and showed me new shingles and clean gutters. I understood perhaps 15% of the explanation. That should outlast both of us, he said. I'm only 64. He looked alarmed. I meant the warranty. I let him suffer for a second before smiling. That night, rain began just after midnight. I went downstairs and stood beneath the kitchen window. No drop slid down the wall. No dark patch spread across the plaster. The bowl was upside down in the drying rack, clean and unnecessary. My phone rang. For one hopeful instant, I thought it was Erin. It was Ruth Delgado, a woman I had worked with years ago who still called every few months and refused to notice how often I promised to call her back. "Were you sleeping?" she asked. "It's 12:30. "That isn't an answer." "Yes." "Good. Then you were home." "Where else would I be?" "At trivia night if you weren't 80 years old. I'm 64. Then stop behaving like my aunt." Ruth had heard about the wedding. Everybody had. She did not ask what happened. Instead, she said, "We lost tonight because Leonard thinks Casablanca is in Egypt. It sounds like it should be. Don't defend him. We need a fourth person next Thursday. I don't play trivia." You know, strange things. That isn't the same. It's exactly the same. I looked at the dry wall above the window. "All right," I said. "Next Thursday, 7 o'clock. Don't bring food. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it." I was not. She hung up without saying goodnight. On Sunday afternoon, Aaron called. I watched his name light the screen for 3 rings before answering. "Hi, Mom." "Hello." A pause. "What are you making for dinner?" he asked. "Nothing." "Oh, I'm meeting Ruth." "Ruth Delgado?" "Yes." He seemed surprised I had a life specific enough to include a surname. "Are you going somewhere?" "Trivia." "You hate trivia. I have never played." Dad hated it. I looked up at the repaired ceiling. "Your father isn't going," I said. The silence that followed was not angry. It was simply new. "Well," Aaron said, "have fun. I intend to." Neither of us knew what to say next, so I told him goodbye. For once, I let the quiet remain after he was gone. The question that won us trivia night was about the first frozen dinner sold commercially in the United States. "Turkey," I said. Leonard frowned. "That isn't a brand." The question asks what meal, not what brand. It was probably Salisbury steak. Everything wasn't Salisbury steak just because you grew up in the 50s. Ruth slapped the table. "Right, turkey." Joanne, our 4th teammate, held the answer slip between 2 fingers. "Are you sure?" "No," I said. "But Leonard is definitely wrong. We wrote turkey. It was turkey." When the host announced our score, Ruth stood and raised both arms as though we had won a national championship instead of a $25 bar certificate. "Our secret weapon," she shouted, pointing at me. People clapped. Leonard claimed he had also meant turkey, but had been thinking of the Salisbury steak category. There was no Salisbury steak category. I laughed so hard I spilled water on my answer sheet. The bar was narrow and noisy, with sticky tables and framed photographs of sports teams nobody at our table could identify. I had expected to feel old and out of place. Instead, I felt old and correctly placed among 3 other people complaining about the volume. Afterward, Ruth walked me to my car. "See you next week," she said. I agreed to one night. "No, you agreed to trivia," Trivia repeats. "I didn't know it was a subscription. Everything is a subscription now." She opened my car door before I could. "You heard about the wedding," I said. Ruth rested one hand on the roof. "Yes. Why didn't you ask? Because if you wanted to tell me, you would. That has never stopped you from asking anything." "True." She considered. Diane called. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. She wanted to know if you were all right. She could ask me. She said you were defensive. I wonder why. Ruth leaned down so I could see her face. I told her you were probably not all right and that making you repeat the story for everybody's personal review committee wouldn't improve things. Thank you. She also told me Cynthia posted something tacky. Yes, I looked. It was tacky. Very. Do you want me to leave a comment? No, I already know what I'd write. Absolutely not. She grinned. Next Thursday. I drove home with the radio louder than usual. A white envelope waited in my mailbox. The return address belonged to Aaron and Vanessa. Inside was a printed wedding photograph and a thank you card. Dear Marion, thank you for the beautiful cookware and for your generous contributions to our wedding. We appreciate everything you did to help make the day possible. Vanessa had written the message. I recognized her narrow, even handwriting. Aaron had signed his name beneath hers. The photograph showed them outside the venue. Vanessa's veil lifted in the wind. Aaron looked at her instead of the camera, and she looked happy in a way I had not seen during the planning. Open, uncontrolled. I was glad they had that moment. I was also furious that the card made me sound like a corporate sponsor. I placed it in my blue binder, then wondered why. The binder still sat on the dining room shelf, swollen with evidence from a wedding that had occurred without me. I carried it upstairs and put it in the back of the hall closet beneath a folded blanket. Aaron came by the following Saturday for Frank's socket set. He called from the driveway. I didn't know if I should use my key, he said. You have a key, I know. If you don't want it, give it back. That isn't what I meant. I opened the door before the conversation could become about metal. He stepped inside and looked toward the kitchen ceiling. The stain is gone. The roof is fixed. You didn't tell me. I didn't realize I needed to issue a bulletin. I said I'd help with the plaster. You also said you watched a video. He smiled reluctantly. So you hired somebody? The roofer recommended a man. It looks good. Thank you. We went to the garage. Frank's tools hung above the workbench on a pegboard he had outlined in black marker, so each item had a specific silhouette. Aaron used to make fun of it. Now he stood before the board with his hands in his pockets. Which set? I asked. The metric sockets, second drawer. He opened it. Did Dad have the extension bar? Probably. Do you know where? No. He began searching. I watched him pick up each tool and return it to the correct outline without thinking. Frank's habits lived in him even when neither of us said Frank's name. What are you fixing? I asked. Our bathroom sink. Do you know how? I watched a video. I looked at him. He laughed, and for a second we were in the old kitchen with burnt garlic bread. Then he saw that I had noticed. He closed the drawer. Thank you for the sockets. You're welcome. He carried the case toward the door. On the porch, he turned. Vanessa put a lot of thought into that thank you card. I'm sure she did. She wasn't trying to be cold. I didn't say she was. You didn't respond. I didn't know thank you cards required thank you cards. His jaw shifted. What would you like me to say, Aaron? That you got it. I got it. That you appreciated it. I appreciated the photograph. He looked toward the driveway. I wanted to ask whether he was happy. I wanted to ask if they had fought on the honeymoon, if Vanessa still said my name, if he missed Sunday dinner. Instead, I waited. He said, She thinks you owe her an apology. For refusing the payment? For everything. The wedding becoming what it became. She told me not to attend. After you made it clear you couldn't support us without controlling the day. I attended no part of the day. My money supported most of it. You know what I mean? Yes, I know exactly what you mean. He shifted the socket case to his other hand. Could you just acknowledge that you hurt her? I have. I apologized to her in my kitchen for making too much of your father. I meant it. That wasn't all of it. What has Vanessa apologized for? His silence became defensive. I'm not asking for a contest, I said. I'm asking whether she believes she did anything wrong. She believes we all handled things badly. That is an excellent sentence when you don't want to name what you did. His face closed. I should go. You should. He drove away with the sockets. I watched from the doorway until his car turned the corner, then hated myself for watching. The weather cooled. Leaves clogged my new gutters, and I called Wayne to ask whether that violated the warranty. He laughed for a full 10 seconds before telling me to buy a ladder. Trivia repeated, just as Ruth had promised. We won once, lost twice, and tied for second because Leonard insisted the capital of Australia was Sydney. Everybody thinks it's Sydney, he argued. That doesn't make it true, I said. I've been to Sydney. Apparently the government hasn't. Afterward, we began eating late dinners at the diner across the street. I learned that Joanne had once sung backup for a touring country band, though she refused to say which one. Leonard had been engaged 4 times and married twice. Ruth had started taking ballroom dance lessons with a retired dentist named Paul, whom she described as pleasantly quiet and excellent at counting. They learned about me in pieces that had nothing to do with being Frank's widow or Aaron's mother. I hated olives. I could remember commercial jingles from 40 years ago. I cheated at cards only when I believed the rules were stupid. I had forgotten what it felt like to be known without being needed. The grocery stores filled with turkeys. Diane called to discuss Thanksgiving as if our family situation were a complicated seating puzzle rather than an open wound. My dining room only holds 8 comfortably, she said. It has held 12. Not comfortably. No family has ever been comfortable on Thanksgiving. She sighed. Aaron thinks you might host. Does he? Your house is larger. Did he ask you to ask me? He mentioned it. That means yes. He and Vanessa are trying to move forward, toward my dining room, Marion. I stared at my new, dry ceiling. Tell him to call me. He called that evening. Hi, Mom. Hello. Diane said you wanted me to call. Diane said you wanted me to host Thanksgiving. We were talking about options, and I'm the option with the largest table. That isn't fair. Do you want to come to my house? Yes. Does Vanessa? She wants the family to be together. That wasn't my question. He exhaled. She doesn't want a confrontation. Neither do I. Then maybe we can have dinner and keep things light. Pretend the wedding never happened. Not pretend. Just not make Thanksgiving the day we solve it. When is the day we solve it? I don't know. Have you told the family why I wasn't there? They know there was conflict. They believe I withheld money because I didn't get the seat I wanted. You did withhold money. After you uninvited me. I don't want to go through this again. That is the problem. You want the benefit of reconciliation without the conversation. We're trying to meet you halfway. What is halfway between being welcome and being useful? He was silent. I continued before I lost my nerve. You and Vanessa may come here before Thanksgiving. We can sit down and talk honestly. No audience, no holiday meal. If we can do that, we can decide what comes next. I'm not bringing my wife here to be put on trial. I'm not asking for a trial. You want her to apologize? Yes. At least you admit it. Do you? He did not answer. I looked at the dining room through the kitchen doorway. The table could hold 12 if we used the bench Frank built and nobody minded touching elbows. My house is not available as a stage for a healed family. We have not actually healed, I said. So you're refusing to host? Yes. That's going to make everything harder for Diane. Then you can help her. He gave a bitter little laugh. You really have changed. No, I have stopped volunteering before anyone else has to. We ended the call badly. The next morning, Vanessa called. I almost let it go to voicemail. Marion, she said when I answered, Aaron told me about Thanksgiving. I assumed he would. I don't want to spend the holiday fighting. Neither do I. Then why can't we agree that everyone was hurt and move on? Because everyone was hurt is not the same as everyone did the same thing. I never said it was. You told me not to attend my son's wedding, and you left us $6,500 short 10 days before it. After you told me not to attend, her voice sharpened, because you had made every part of the wedding emotionally dangerous. There it was again. Safety transformed into a word that could cover anything. What were you afraid I would do? I asked. Cry, make comments, pull Aaron aside, turn the room toward you without even realizing it. You decided what I would do and punished me for it before I arrived. You had already shown me. I closed my eyes. Vanessa, I accept that I was intrusive. I accept that I used Frank's memory too often and that my money made you feel watched. I have apologized for those things. Can you tell me one thing you regret? She did not answer for several seconds. I regret that the timing became so ugly, the timing, and I regret that Aaron told me the payment was guaranteed. I opened my eyes. What? He said you would pay no matter what happened. He said you always did. The room went very still. Did he say that before or after you decided I shouldn't attend? Both. I sat down at the kitchen table. Vanessa's voice softened, but not with apology. So when you refused, it felt like proof that everything came with conditions. No, I said. It was proof that Aaron had promised you something that was never his to guarantee. Neither of us spoke. For the first time, I heard a crack in the story that had made Vanessa and me enemies. It had my son's voice inside it. Did he tell you why he thought he could guarantee it? I asked. Vanessa was quiet. He said you would never let the wedding fail. That sounds like him. He said you might get emotional about decisions, but when it mattered, you always came through. I pressed my thumb against the edge of the table. What did you ask him? What before he guaranteed the money? What question were you asking? Her breath changed. I asked whether accepting it meant you had a say in everything. And he said no. He said the money was unconditional. I believed that too. Until it wasn't. Until you removed me from the event it was paying for. We had reached the same locked door from opposite sides. Vanessa said, I told Aaron it would be easier if we paid for everything ourselves. He was the one who insisted. Because he wanted the wedding you wanted. I didn't force him. I didn't say you did. You implied it. No. You hear accusation before I finish speaking, and you hear rejection before anyone says no. That stopped me. She was good at finding the tender place and pressing exactly hard enough to call it honesty. You're right, I said. I didn't mean you did. And you're right. Silence gathered again, less hostile, but no safer. I should not have said what I said about your payment and your presence, Vanessa said. My heart lifted before she continued, but I was angry. We had spent months feeling like every boundary would be punished. That is an explanation. I know, not an apology. I know. I waited. She did not add one. Are you coming to Diane's for Thanksgiving? I asked. I don't know. You should. Aaron should. You won't make a scene? I laughed once. I could not help it. What scene do you imagine? Me overturning the gravy? I'm trying to avoid another disaster. The first disaster was very quiet, Vanessa. I sat at home and ate a sandwich. She had no answer. We can be in the same room, I said. I won't discuss the wedding in front of the family, but I will not pretend we are reconciled. That's fair. It was the first time either of us had used that word and meant the same thing. Diane's dining room did not hold 8 comfortably. It held 11 through engineering and intimidation. Her husband Howard added a folding table at one end and covered the gap between the tables with a runner so nobody would notice they were different heights. Everyone noticed when Daniel set down his water and it slid toward the mashed potatoes. Gravity, Howard said. Nothing I can do. You could level the table, Diane replied. Then it wouldn't be gravity. I arrived carrying 1 pumpkin pie and nothing else. Diane opened the door, looked at the pie, then looked behind me. Is that all? You asked me to bring dessert. You usually bring sweet potatoes. You told me not to host. I didn't say stop cooking. I brought pie. She lowered her voice. Marie brought a pie. Then we have 2. We always have one. It's Thanksgiving, Diane, not a controlled experiment. Behind her, Howard called, I'll eat both. I handed her the pie and removed my coat. Elise came from the kitchen with a glass of wine. I told her you'd overcorrect. I followed instructions. You have never followed instructions in your life. Then everyone should enjoy the novelty. Aaron and Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later. I heard their voices in the hall while I was setting forks. My body recognized Aaron before I saw him. Every muscle in my back tightened. He entered carrying a bottle of red wine. Vanessa followed with a bouquet of flowers and a bakery box. Diane looked at the box. "What's that?" "Pumpkin pie," Vanessa said. Howard shouted from the living room. "Now we have 3!" Nobody laughed except Joe, who had already been drinking. Aaron and I looked at each other. "Hi, Mom. Hello." He stepped forward as if he might hug me, then stopped. I did not help him decide. Vanessa crossed the room and handed Diane the flowers. She wore a rust-colored sweater and small gold earrings. Her wedding ring caught the light when she adjusted the stems. "Your house looks beautiful," she told Diane. "My table is crooked, only one part." "Thank you, Howard," Diane called. Dinner preparation provided a collection of tasks no one had to explain. I sliced bread. Elise filled water glasses. Vanessa arranged flowers in a pitcher because Diane could not find a vase. Aaron tried to open the wine with a decorative corkscrew shaped like a bird. "That doesn't work," I said. He looked at me. "Dad gave this to her. Dad hated that thing. It's a corkscrew. It's a sculpture pretending to be a corkscrew." Howard produced a normal opener. Aaron surrendered the bird. The exchange was so ordinary, it hurt more than open hostility. At the table, Diane seated me beside Elise. Aaron and Vanessa sat across from us. Whether that had been intentional, I did not ask. Conversation moved carefully around work, traffic, food, and Howard's blood pressure. Daniel complimented the sweet potatoes. "Marion's recipe," Diane said. "I made them," Marie corrected. "With Marion's recipe." Everyone looked at me as if I had contributed by existing near cinnamon. "They're excellent," I told Marie. Aaron took a second helping. Halfway through dinner, Joe asked about the honeymoon. Diane kicked him under the table so hard the silverware jumped. "What?" he said. "They went on one." "It was lovely," Vanessa said. "Where did you go?" "St. Lucia." "Nice. We had rain 2 days. Still nicer than here." The conversation survived. Aaron described a boat tour. Vanessa corrected the time they had left the hotel. He corrected the name of the beach. She corrected him again. Each correction was small, but their voices carried the brittle politeness of people who had been fighting in private. I wanted to read meaning into every glance. I stopped myself. Their marriage was not my reward for being right. After dinner, I helped Diane clear plates. Vanessa joined us in the kitchen. The room was too narrow for 3 women pretending not to notice one another. Diane took one look at us and said, "I'm going to find containers." She left through the opposite door. Vanessa scraped food into the trash. Subtle. She believes subtlety is lying quietly. I turned on the water. For a while, we worked without speaking. I washed. Vanessa dried. Finally, she said, "I asked him." "About the payment?" "About everything." I handed her a plate. "He told me he was trying to keep both of us calm," she said. "He didn't want me worrying about the budget, and he didn't want you feeling like I was taking over. So he promised each of us the other person was fine." "Yes? Were you?" "No, neither was I." She placed the plate on the counter. "He said you would be angry if he told you we wanted more distance. I would have been hurt. He treats those as the same thing. Because anger passes. Hurt requires something from him." Vanessa looked at me. I had not intended to explain my son to his wife. The old habit came too easily. "I'm not taking your side against him," I said. "I didn't ask you to. I know." She folded the dish towel over the oven handle, aligning both ends. "He told me the mother-son dance was his idea," she said. My hand stopped in the water. "He told me he didn't like dancing. He said you would make it about Frank and cry." The plate slipped in my grip and struck the side of the sink. It did not break. "Was that what you wanted?" I asked. "I wanted the schedule shorter. I didn't care which dances we kept. But you kept yours. My father asked me to. So did I." She looked down. The kitchen filled with voices from the dining room. Someone had begun dividing 3 pies into unequal portions. I didn't know he blamed me for all of it, Vanessa said. He didn't blame you. He hid behind you. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. She picked up another plate. I still believe you crossed boundaries, she said. I did. And I still believe refusing the payment was punishment. It was a boundary with a consequence. I understand why it felt like punishment. Her mouth tightened. That sounds like something a therapist says. I play trivia with a woman who reads self-help books. That surprised a laugh out of her. It lasted only a second, but it was her real laugh, loud and crooked. Then Aaron appeared in the doorway. He looked from Vanessa to me. Everything okay? Vanessa folded the towel again. We're washing dishes, I can see that. I dried my hands. We're fine. The words sounded different now, not a lie exactly, a ceasefire. On the drive home, Elise asked whether I wanted coffee. It's 9:30. You drank coffee at night for 40 years. Your father drank coffee. I participated. We stopped at a diner anyway. She ordered tea. I ordered pie because somehow I had left Diane's house without tasting any of the three. You and Vanessa were in the kitchen a long time, Elise said. We did dishes. What did she say? I'm not discussing her marriage. Elise raised an eyebrow. That is new. Yes. Is Aaron lying to both of you? I said, I'm not discussing it. So yes. I pointed my fork at her. You inherited that from me. No, I inherited it from Dad. The next afternoon, Aaron called. You talked to Vanessa about me. She talked to me. You told her I hid behind her. I said you did during the wedding. That's between me and my wife. Then stop making me part of it. You were already part of it. Because you placed me there. You told her my money was guaranteed. You told me the dance was her decision. You gave each of us a version that kept you from having to say no. I was trying to keep the peace. You keep calling silence peace. He breathed heavily into the phone. Now she questions everything I told her during the planning, he said. Should she? That isn't the point. It is exactly the point. We can't have one conversation without it turning into a fight. I closed the blue binder in my mind. I pictured every page, every invoice, every message I no longer had. I'm sorry you're fighting, I said. But I will not repair your marriage for you. I didn't ask you to. You called me because she is angry about something you did. I called because you made it worse. No, I stopped making it easier. He went silent. I let him. Finally, he said, I really thought you would pay. I know. You always fix things. The roof needed fixing. That isn't what I mean. I know that too. His voice lowered. I didn't think you'd let me fail. You got married, Aaron. The wedding happened. You did not fail. It wasn't the wedding we planned. No. Vanessa cried when we lost the room. I'm sorry. She blamed me. Was she wrong? He did not answer. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the ceiling that no longer leaked. I thought if I could get through the day, he said, everybody would calm down afterward. And then? I don't know. That has been your whole plan with me. Get through the moment and let me absorb what comes after. He said nothing. For so long, I checked the screen to see whether the call had ended. I didn't think you would leave, he said. The sentence was barely audible. I didn't leave, I replied. You asked me not to come. He ended the call without saying goodbye. For the first time, he had not denied what happened. It was not an apology, but it was no longer peace. He did not call the next day. He sent one text asking whether Frank's extension bar might be in the red toolbox instead of the socket case. I told him to check the bottom drawer. He replied with a thumbs up. Our family had been reduced to hardware and punctuation. At trivia, Ruth noticed I kept turning my phone face down. Waiting for someone or avoiding someone? She asked. Both. That's efficient. Leonard arrived carrying a folded newspaper and announced that he had studied world capitals. Joanne said, Name the capital of Canada, Toronto. Ruth closed her eyes. I studied the difficult ones, Leonard said. We lost by 4 points. 2 of which disappeared because Leonard changed my answer about the inventor of the dishwasher. A woman invented it. He insisted that could not possibly be true because early dishwashers would have required mechanical knowledge. Joanne asked whether women in the 19th century had lacked hands. The argument continued through dinner. I drove home through the first snow of the season, still laughing. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw one set of tire tracks and briefly thought Aaron might be waiting on the porch. Nobody was there. I had become good at recovering from that disappointment before I entered the house. The date of Frank's death approached without anyone naming it. For 6 years, Aaron and I had spent that day together. We never called it an anniversary. Anniversaries belong to beginnings, and Frank would have objected to giving death its own annual appointment. We called it Frank Day, which sounded cheerful enough to annoy him. I made his chicken and dumplings. Aaron brought lemon meringue pie from a bakery Frank loved. We watched one of his old westerns and argued about whether the horses seemed tired. Sometimes we looked through photographs. Sometimes we barely mentioned him. The ritual was not sacred, but it was ours. The week before, I waited for Aaron to ask what time he should come. He didn't. Elise called on Tuesday. "What are you doing Saturday?" "I don't know. Frank Day. I know what day it is." "Are you making dumplings?" "I haven't decided. I hate dumplings. You ate them every year, out of respect for Dad. He knew you hated them. He respected my commitment to lying." I smiled. "Do you want to come? Only if we eat something else." We agreed on lunch at a small Italian restaurant Frank had liked because the portions offended him with their size. Saturday morning, Aaron still had not called. I told myself I was not waiting. Then I cleaned the downstairs bathroom, changed my sweater twice, and checked the porch whenever a car slowed near the house. At noon, I met Elise at the restaurant. She brought a manila envelope filled with photographs she had found while clearing a cabinet. Frank at a company picnic, holding a paper plate under his chin. Frank asleep on the sofa with one sock missing. Frank standing in Elise's first apartment beneath a ceiling fan he had installed backward. It pushed air upward, she said. He claimed that was the winter setting. It was July. He was ahead of the season. We laughed over pasta and told stories that did not all belong to Aaron and me. That should not have been a revelation. Frank had been Elise's father, too, but somehow my grief had often traveled through my son, perhaps because Aaron resembled him, perhaps because he allowed me to. Elise held up a photograph of Frank wearing the decorative bird corkscrew around his neck. "I knew he liked it," she said. "He hated it. He wore it to Thanksgiving because Howard said he wouldn't. That's liking it in Dad's language." After lunch, we drove to the cemetery. Snow lay in thin strips between the headstones. Elise brushed leaves away from Frank's name with her glove. "I used to think you and Aaron had a private version of Dad," she said. I looked at her. "You talked about him together like I had missed the meeting. I'm sorry. I'm not accusing you. That doesn't mean I shouldn't be sorry." She tucked one hand into my elbow. We stood there until the cold entered our shoes, then returned to the car and argued about the heat. At 4:30, my phone rang. Aaron. I answered from the kitchen, where I was putting away the blue binder. I had taken it out earlier, thinking it might contain a picture of Frank I wanted. It did not. It contained only the wedding. "Hi, Mom." "Hello." "What time are you eating?" I looked at the clock. I already ate. A pause. "What do you mean? I had lunch with Elise." "For Frank Day?" "Yes." "You did it at lunch?" "That is when lunch generally happens. I bought the pie." I closed the closet door. "You never called. I always come at 6. You usually call. I've had a lot going on." "So have I." He breathed out. "I thought we were still doing it. I didn't know what we were doing. You could have asked. So could you." Silence. I imagined him in his kitchen holding a white bakery box. I felt guilty, then angry at myself for feeling guilty. "Did you go to the cemetery?" he asked. "Yes." "Without me?" "With Elise." "That isn't what I meant." "No, I know. He said something I could not hear." "What?" "Nothing." Don't do that. Do what? Say something and make me ask twice. His voice sharpened. I said, I guess you've replaced me. The words were childish enough that I nearly dismissed them. Then I remembered how often grief made adults become the age they had been when love first frightened them. You are not replaceable, I said. It doesn't feel that way. You were not invited because I needed someone to fill a position. Elise is my daughter. She loved your father. I should have made room for her years ago. So this is another lesson. No. Everything with you is a lesson now, only because you keep asking me to return to a version of myself that was hurting all of us. He was quiet. The pie will keep, I said. You can come tomorrow. I'm outside. I went to the front window. His car sat at the curb. He had been there long enough for snow to collect along the windshield. I opened the door before he knocked. Aaron stood on the porch holding the bakery box. He wore no coat, only a gray sweater, as if he had left home before deciding where he was going. Come inside before you freeze. He followed me to the kitchen. I made coffee. He set the pie on the table, removed the plastic lid, and cut 2 pieces without asking. The meringue collapsed beneath the knife. Dad hated when it did that, he said. Your father ate pie from the center outward. His opinions on presentation were invalid. Aaron smiled, then looked down. We ate in silence. Where's Vanessa? I asked. At home. Does she know you're here? Yes. That was progress of a kind. We started seeing someone, he said. A doctor? A marriage counselor? I put down my fork. You don't have to look alarmed. I'm not alarmed. You look alarmed. I'm trying to look neutral. You've never looked neutral in your life. That is probably true. He dragged his fork through the lemon filling. Vanessa thinks I avoid conflict. Vanessa is observant. She also thinks she becomes controlling when she feels uncertain. That seems observant too. And apparently I make her more uncertain by telling her whatever I think will calm her down. I waited. He looked at me. You could pretend this is new information. I could, but you won't. No. He pushed the plate away. The counselor asked me what I thought would happen after the wedding. What did you say? That everyone would get over it. Did you believe that? Yes. Why? Because you always did. His eyes stayed on the table. I said nothing. When Vanessa said you shouldn't come, I knew it was wrong. My hands became very still. She said your presence would make her tense all day, he continued. She said she couldn't enjoy the wedding if she was waiting for you to react to something. And what did you say? I told her we could talk to you. You didn't. No. Why? Because then she asked whether we could still afford the venue if you didn't pay. The snow tapped softly against the window. I said you would pay, he said. I said you'd be hurt, but you would do it for me. You guaranteed it. Yes. And when she called me, I sat beside her. I know that. She didn't plan the sentence. Not exactly. She was angry because you kept asking whether she expected the payment. She said we needed the money more than we needed another argument. That is not what she said. No. He pressed his palms together. When she said, we need your final payment, not your presence, I felt relieved. There was the truth, finally, and it was worse than the excuses. Relieved, I repeated, because she had said the selfish thing out loud. I didn't have to. I looked toward the window. No water ran down the wall. The repaired plaster was smooth, almost too white against the older paint. You heard her tell me not to come, I said. Yes, you heard me ask you to object. Yes. And you asked me to pay. His voice broke. Yes. I breathed slowly until I trusted myself. I knew you would be devastated, he said. I just thought you would forgive me, and I was more afraid of one fight with Vanessa than I was of hurting you, because I was safe. He nodded. You said that like it was a compliment. I know. He covered his face with both hands. I had seen Aaron cry at Frank's funeral, his shoulders shaking beneath my arm. Every instinct in me moved toward him. I stayed in my chair. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I let you miss my wedding. I'm sorry I asked for the money. I'm sorry I made Vanessa the villain because I was too much of a coward to tell either of you the truth. The apology did not repair anything. It did not return the ceremony, the blue dress, or the hours I had spent waiting for my phone to ring, but it entered the room without asking me to comfort him. 'I love you,' I said. He lowered his hands. 'That does not mean we go back.' 'I know.' 'Do you?' 'I'm trying to.' I looked at the clock. Trivia began in 40 minutes. 'You can stay for coffee,' I said. 'Then I have plans.' His face showed disappointment, then surprise at his own disappointment. Okay. We finished the pie. When he left, he took the remaining half to Vanessa. He did not ask for Frank's cufflinks. He did not ask me to host Sunday dinner. At the door, he hugged me carefully, and for once he did not use the embrace to declare us fine. I let him go while there was still something unfinished between us. At trivia, I missed a question about the longest river in Europe because I kept replaying Aaron's apology. Ruth nudged me. "You're somewhere else." My son came over. Good somewhere or bad somewhere? Different somewhere. Leonard leaned across the table. "What's the river?" "The Volga," I said. Joanne wrote it down. "See? She can have a family crisis and still carry us. I am not carrying Leonard." "I got the cheese question," he protested. The answer was cheddar. Still counts. We finished second. Ruth used our share of the prize certificate to order onion rings nobody wanted, then waited until Leonard and Joanne were arguing about movie sequels before asking, "Did he apologize?" "Yes." "Properly?" "I think so." "Did you forgive him?" "I don't know." She ate an onion ring. "That's all?" "What do you want me to say?" I expected advice. You know my advice. If you don't know, then you don't know. That sounds suspiciously healthy. I'm dating a dentist. He isn't a therapist. Anybody who spends 40 years telling people to open up absorbs something. I smiled. Ruth pointed at me. "Don't rush because the apology made you feel better, and don't reject it because feeling better makes you suspicious. That was almost wise. Paul said it. Of course." Aaron returned the socket set the following Sunday. He set it on the porch, knocked, and stepped back as if delivering a package that might object to him. "I cleaned everything," he said. "Why?" "It was dirty. They're tools." I was trying to be respectful. "Your father used those sockets to remove an oil filter and never cleaned them because he said the grime was protective." Aaron glanced down at the case. "I may have removed history. Your father also believed expiration dates were government suggestions. So we're not making him perfect anymore?" "I'm trying not to. I invited him in for coffee. He did not stay for dinner. More importantly, he did not wait for me to offer. Our first conversations after that were awkward in ways our old conversations had never been." Aaron asked how I was and did not follow the question with a request. I answered honestly enough to make both of us uncomfortable. He told me about counseling without describing Vanessa's private words. I resisted the urge to ask for them. Once during a call, he said, "Vanessa and I had a rough session yesterday." I waited. "That's all," he added. "All right, you're not going to ask? Do you want me to?" "No." "Then no." He laughed. "This is weird. Extremely." He began correcting the wedding story one person at a time. "I learned because Diane called me. Aaron says you didn't threaten them over the head table." "I know. You know he's telling people?" "He told me he would. He said they uninvited you before you refused the payment. That is what happened." "I'm aware." "You weren't at the time." She ignored that. "He called Cynthia too," she said. "Apparently that did not go well." "What happened?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. She said the distinction doesn't matter because you use the money as leverage. Cynthia has strong opinions about other people's money." Diane was quiet. Then she said, "I'm sorry. I nearly asked her to repeat it." "For what?" "For asking what you did before I asked whether you were all right." for assuming you should fix it because you were the mother." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Thank you." I still think the entire thing became needlessly catastrophic. That is the family motto. She laughed. The apology did not transform Diane. The following week, she called to complain that I had not told her about Ruth's dentist. Still, something between us loosened. Erin apologized to Elise too, though I heard about it from her only after she mentioned they had eaten lunch together. "What did he say?" I asked. "He said he put me in the middle by calling after the payment argument and made me choose whether to attend." "What did you say?" "That he puts people in the middle because then he can stand outside the conflict and look sad." "That sounds like you. It was efficient. Are you forgiving him?" She gave me a long look. "I learned from you that I don't have to announce that on schedule." Fair enough. Vanessa did not contact me. Erin mentioned her name, but he never suggested I call. For the first time in his life, he seemed to understand that carrying messages between two people was not peacemaking. Winter thinned. Dirty snow retreated from the curbs. The new roof endured sleet, wind, and one branch that fell hard enough to wake me at 2 a.m. Wayne inspected it and declared the shingles unbothered, a word I decided to adopt as a goal. Ruth's dentist took our trivia team dancing at a restaurant with a small band. Paul was indeed pleasantly quiet and excellent at counting. Left, right, together, he told me. "I know how to dance. You're moving backward. I'm leading. You are not supposed to. Then stop leaving space." Ruth nearly fell into a table laughing. The music changed to a slow song. For 1 second, I pictured the dance I had not had with Erin. The grief came sharply, but it did not take the whole room. I stepped outside, breathed in cold air, and went back before the song ended. That was how healing seemed to work. Not as a door, but as a room I could leave and re-enter without asking permission. Vanessa called on a rainy Tuesday in April. "Do you have time to talk?" "I have time. In person." I looked at the kitchen window. Water moved cleanly down the glass and nowhere else. "When?" "Whenever you're comfortable. Tomorrow at 6. I'll be there." She arrived at 5:53 carrying nothing. No flowers, no cake, no bottle of wine. I appreciated that more than I would have admitted. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the repaired wall. "The stain is gone." "Yes. It looks nice. Thank you." I offered coffee. She asked for water. We sat at the table. She wore black trousers and a pale green blouse. Her hair was shorter than it had been at Thanksgiving. Without a wedding folder or a list between us, she looked younger and more tired. "Erin didn't ask me to come," she said. "All right. He knows I'm here, but this was my decision." I waited. She wrapped both hands around the water glass. "I've apologized to you in my head," she said. "It always goes very well. I'm charming in imaginary conversations. You accept everything immediately. That doesn't sound like me." "No." Her real laugh appeared, then vanished. She took a breath. "I'm sorry I uninvited you from our wedding." The words landed quietly. "I'm sorry I said we needed your payment instead of your presence. It was cruel. I knew it was cruel while I was saying it." I looked at her hands. "I was angry," she continued. "I believed you used money to control people. And instead of refusing the money, I decided I could keep it and remove your influence. I told myself that was a boundary. It wasn't. No, it was using you." Her voice remained steady, though the water trembled slightly inside the glass. "I convinced myself your presence would ruin the wedding because I would spend the day watching your face. I was afraid you would cry during the memorial, criticize the seating, bring up the dance, make Erin feel guilty. I might have cried. Yes, I would not have overturned the gravy." Her mouth twitched. "I know." "You did not know then." "No. I had reduced you to the worst version of every interaction we'd had, and I had turned your wedding into a place where Frank's absence had to be managed." She nodded. "Sometimes. I am sorry for that." "I know. I did make you feel watched. I offered money and then behaved as though generosity gave me permanent access." Yes. The old sting passed between us, but neither of us reached for a weapon. Vanessa lowered her eyes. My mother thinks apologizing means I'm agreeing that you were right about everything. Your mother is not here. No. Do you believe I was right about everything? No. Good. Neither do I. She looked up. I don't want an apology that makes you dishonest, I said. But I won't accept another apology for timing or stress. I understand. Do you? I'm trying to. The phrase belonged to Erin now. Hearing it from her made me wonder how often they had practiced uncertainty in that counselor's office. I liked you, Vanessa said. Before everything. I liked you too. I think that made it worse. Yes. If I had disliked you, I could have set limits without feeling guilty. Instead, I smiled, accepted help, and complained to Erin afterward. I offered help because I was afraid that if I wasn't useful, I would become optional. She closed her eyes briefly. And then I proved you right, she said. No, you proved the fear existed. That does not make everything I did to avoid it healthy. We sat with that. Finally, she asked, Is there a way back? Not to where we were. I know. I don't want to review flowers, manage your holidays, or become the person Erin calls when the two of you cannot speak to each other. I don't want that either. I will not give you money. We won't ask. And I will not pretend the wedding no longer hurts because you apologized properly. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Okay. The answer was small and serious. We can start with coffee, I said. You offered coffee. You asked for water. She laughed through the tears. Next time. We spoke for another hour. Not about the wedding. She told me counseling had taught them that Erin soothed people with promises, and she turned promises into expectations so quickly neither of them noticed when facts disappeared. I told her about trivia and Paul's unsuccessful attempt to make me follow while dancing. At the door, she did not hug me. I'll call, she said. All right, I won't call too much. We will both have to discover normal. She nodded and left. Normal came in uneven pieces. Erin and Vanessa joined Elise and me for lunch in June. Nobody fought. Nobody called it reconciliation. Vanessa asked before moving my chair away from the air conditioning vent, which was so excessively careful that all four of us laughed. Erin began coming to Sunday dinner once a month, instead of assuming every Sunday belonged to him. Sometimes Vanessa came. Sometimes he came alone. Sometimes I had plans and said no. Each refusal still surprised him. Each time, he survived. Near the end of summer, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was not the heavy cream stationery they had used for the wedding. It was a plain card with a photograph of a badly frosted cake on the front. Inside, Erin had written, We're having dinner at our apartment for our first anniversary. Just you, Elise, and us. No gifts, no checks, no jobs for you to do. Beneath it, in Vanessa's handwriting, were the words, Your presence is the only thing we're asking for. I stood in the kitchen holding the card. The answer was not as simple as they hoped. It was simpler than I feared. I put the card on the table and walked upstairs. Frank's cuff links were still in the top drawer of his dresser. The velvet box had collected a fine line of dust along the hinge. I opened it. The blue stones caught the afternoon light. I imagined taking them to the anniversary dinner. I could give them to Erin quietly without a speech. He would understand that the gift meant I believed in his marriage, or that I forgave him, or that his father remained present despite everything. That was the problem. The cufflinks would be expected to say too much because none of us had finished saying it ourselves. I closed the box and returned it to the drawer. Then I called Elise. Did you get an invitation? The one with the ugly cake? Yes. I thought it was brave of them to use a photograph of their actual wedding cake. The wedding cake was white. It leaned. That is not the same as ugly. Are you going? I looked at the card downstairs through the open bedroom door, though I could not actually see it from where I stood. I think so. Enthusiastic. I am allowed to think. You've had almost a year. I've had 8 minutes. Call me when you reach 9. She hung up. Ruth was less patient. Go, she said when I showed her the card at trivia. We have the summer championship that night. You can do both. Dinner is at 5:30. We start at 7:30. I would have to leave early. So leave early. On their anniversary? They invited you, Marion. They did not purchase your evening. Leonard leaned across the table. What are we discussing? Boundaries, Joanne said. I don't believe in them. We know, Ruth replied. I turned the card over in my hands. What if leaving makes it seem like I'm punishing them? What if staying makes you resent them for missing something you enjoy? You have become unbearable since you started dating Paul. The man respects a schedule. Joanne took the card from me and read the note. This is good, she said. It is. Do you believe them? I believe they mean it. That wasn't my question. I looked at Aaron's handwriting. No gifts, no checks, no jobs. Yes, I said, I believe them. The next day I called Vanessa. We'd love to have you, she said. I can come at 5:30, but I have trivia at 7:30. Oh, there was a short pause. I can skip it, I said, hating that the offer escaped so quickly. No, she said, please don't. It's your anniversary, and trivia is your plan. We could choose another night. Aaron wanted the actual day. Then I can stay until 7. That's enough. The answer startled me. Are you sure? Yes. We'll eat promptly. I'll threaten him. I heard that, Aaron called in the background. You were supposed to, she said. I smiled. Do you want me to bring anything? Vanessa waited just long enough for us both to notice the question. Only yourself. I nearly made a joke about the final payment. A year earlier, I would have. Frank would have. The joke formed perfectly and then passed. I'll be there, I said. On the afternoon of the dinner, I stood in front of my closet longer than necessary. The blue dress waited on the highest shelf inside its box. I did not consider wearing it, but I took the box down anyway. The tissue paper crackled when I lifted the lid. The dress remained beautiful. It also belonged to a day that no longer needed to happen. I closed the box and chose black trousers and a dark blue blouse. No sheer sleeves, no shawl, nothing selected for me by someone else. Downstairs, I reached automatically for a bottle of wine from the cabinet. No gifts. I put it back. At 5:15, I left the house carrying only my purse. Aaron and Vanessa's apartment looked almost the same as it had during the guest list argument. The coffee table was still too small. The sofa had been moved beneath the window, and a round dining table stood where a bookcase used to be. A framed wedding photograph hung on the wall. It was the picture from the thank you card. Vanessa's veil lifted behind her. Aaron looked at her with that unguarded happiness. I stopped beneath it. Vanessa came from the kitchen wiping her hands on a towel. You don't have to look at that. I'm allowed to look at your wedding picture. I know. I know what you meant. She stood beside me. It's a beautiful photograph, I said. It was about 30 seconds before the wind blew the veil into my mouth. That part didn't make the album? It should have. We smiled at each other. Vanessa's hair had grown enough to tuck behind her ears. She wore jeans and a white shirt with one cuff folded higher than the other. There was flour on her cheek. What are you making? Dinner. That usually involves food. She won't tell anyone, Aaron called. He entered carrying a wooden spoon. He wore an apron printed with cartoon lemons. Happy anniversary, I said. Thank you. He looked at my empty hands. You followed the instructions. I can be taught. He kissed my cheek. The gesture was warm but not entitled. What are you hiding? I asked. Nothing. The kitchen door is closed. The smoke alarm is sensitive. It is not going well, Vanessa said. It's going fine. Chicken is not supposed to go fine. It is supposed to be cooked. Aaron pointed the spoon at her. That thermometer is unreliable. I bought it yesterday. Technology can fail at any age. I laughed before I could stop myself. Flavor smoke, I said. His face changed with recognition. Exactly. Your garlic bread was still burned. That accusation has never been proven. The buzzer sounded, and Elise's voice came through the intercom. "I'm downstairs. Your building smells like poultry." Aaron pressed the button. "That could be any apartment. It's yours." Elise arrived carrying a 6-pack of sparkling water. "No gifts," I said. "It's a beverage. It has a bow. The store put that there." "The store wrapped sparkling water?" She pulled off the bow and stuck it to Aaron's apron. "Now it's yours." We sat in the living room while the chicken was given additional time to reconsider its condition. Conversation began cautiously, then loosened. Elise told us about Leonard's latest trivia error, which I had apparently described to her 3 times already. He said the Great Barrier Reef was in New Zealand, she told Aaron. "It's near New Zealand. It's near Australia. Those are near each other." "Not by reef standards," I said. Vanessa laughed. "What are reef standards?" "Strict." Aaron checked his phone for the oven timer. "You really like this trivia thing?" he asked me. "I do." "I thought you hated games." "I hated playing games with your father because he cheated." "Dad didn't cheat. He made up rules when he was losing." "That's strategy." "That is exactly what he said." We all laughed, including Elise. Then she said, "Dad cheated at cards with me too." Aaron turned toward her. "What game?" "Gin rummy?" He kept extra cards under his leg. "He told me you cheated." I was 27. That doesn't answer the question. For once, I did not supply the definitive, frank story. I listened while my children compared memories that did not belong to me. The oven timer rang. Dinner was roast chicken, potatoes, green beans, and bread from the bakery near my house. The chicken was slightly dry. I did not say so, though Aaron knew me well enough to notice what I was not saying. "You can criticize it," he said. "I don't want to. You always want to. That is separate from whether I should." Vanessa covered a laugh with her napkin. The round table barely fit 4 plates. Aaron and Vanessa sat across from each other. Elise sat beside me, not at the far end or added after everyone else had chosen a place. No chair had greater importance than another. Halfway through dinner, Aaron lifted his glass. I wasn't going to make a speech. "Good," Elise said, "but I want to say thank you for coming." Vanessa looked at him, waiting. He continued. "This year was not what either of us expected." "That sounds like a speech," Elise said. "Let him finish," I told her. "It might get worse." Aaron smiled, then became serious again. I spent a lot of time believing that keeping people calm was the same as taking care of them. It wasn't. It was just a way to avoid being honest until somebody else paid for it. Nobody looked at me, which allowed me to keep breathing. Vanessa rested her hand on the table, palm up. Aaron placed his hand over it. "We're still learning," he said, "but I'm glad we're married." "So am I," Vanessa said. He looked at me. "I'm glad too," I told them. The words were true. They did not erase the wedding. They did not need to. Elise raised her sparkling water. To the chicken surviving. "It survived too long," Vanessa said. "I heard that," Aaron replied. We touched glasses. After dinner, Vanessa gathered the plates. I stood automatically. "Sit," she said. "I can carry dishes without becoming unpaid staff." She froze. Then I smiled. She pointed a plate at me. That joke was overdue. By almost a year. "You've been saving it?" I considered using it on the phone. "I'm glad you didn't. So am I." We carried the plates together. Aaron wrapped the leftover chicken while Elise inspected the leaning cake on the counter. "You made this?" she asked. "I did," Vanessa said. "It looks like weather happened to it." The layers shifted. "Gravity," Aaron said. "Nothing we can do. Howard has poisoned this family," I said. The cake was chocolate with white frosting and blue sugar flowers. One side leaned noticeably. A silver number 1 stood on top. "The card makes sense now," I said. Vanessa looked proud. I wanted to practice. "For what?" "Cake. That is not an answer. There doesn't have to be a milestone attached to every cake, Marion." "Fair." She opened a drawer for candles, then stopped. "You have to leave soon." I checked the clock. 7 minutes before 7. I should. Aaron looked toward the cake. It'll only take a minute to cut. I knew that tone. Not manipulative, exactly. Hopeful. The old me would have sat back down before he finished the sentence. I told Ruth I'd be there early to review categories. His disappointment appeared plainly. Then he nodded. Okay, that was all. No sigh, no joke about priorities, no private suggestion that Vanessa would be hurt. He let the answer remain mine. Elise can stay for cake, I said. I intend to, she replied. You could bring me a piece. You have to stop using me as a courier between family members. That is not what that means. Growth is uncomfortable. Aaron laughed. At the door, Vanessa hugged me first. It was not the quick, careful embrace from our months of rebuilding. She held me firmly, and I let myself hold her back. Thank you for coming, she said. Thank you for wanting me. She released me. Aaron walked me downstairs. The evening was warm, and the apartment courtyard smelled like cut grass. At my car, he put his hands in his pockets. You really have categories to review? Leonard studied geography. That bad? He still believes Toronto is the capital of Canada. Aaron smiled, then looked toward the building. Mom? Yes? Do you think we're going to be okay? The question was larger than the anniversary. I could have answered the way I once did, with certainty purchased from my own fear. I think this was good, I said. He nodded slowly. Me too. I can't promise more than that tonight. I know. He hugged me. The cufflinks remained in Frank's dresser. The blue dress remained in its box. I had brought no check, no food, and no task completed in advance. Still, my son held me as if I had arrived with something valuable. When he stepped back, he did not ask when I would cook for him or whether I could help the following week. Drive safely, he said. I will. I got into the car. Behind him, the apartment door opened and Vanessa called that the cake was sliding. Aaron laughed and turned toward his wife. My phone buzzed with a message from Ruth. Where are you? Leonard says the Amazon is in Africa. I lowered the window. Go save the cake, I told Aaron. He pointed at my phone. Go save geography. I drove away while he was still smiling. For the first time, leaving my son did not feel like losing him.